Hey, everybody.
Hello.
How are you?
Be almost Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's coming up. Okay, it is 6 p.m., November 24th, 2020, and I convene this meeting of the Wellfleet Select Board. First item on the agenda is announcements, open session, and public comments. Public comments must be brief. The board will not deliberate or vote on any matter raised solely during announcements and public comments. Elaine.
Okay,
Hi.
I'm good.
Yep, you're good.
I hate this about Zoom. Anyway, good evening. On behalf of the Housing Authority and the Local Housing Partnership, I want to let people know that if they have lost income due to COVID-19 or other reasons and need help paying their rent, there is funding available, including Wellfleet's Rental Assistance Program and our Emergency Housing Assistance Program. Community preservation funds were approved for these programs at our town meeting in September. There is also help to pay for first and last month's rent and security deposit if you need help getting into a new apartment. And there's also funding to pay for rent that is in arrears. So please, if you need help paying rent, or if you're a landlord and have a tenant who needs help paying rent, we encourage you and ask you to contact the Homeless Prevention Council in Orleans at 508-255-9667. The Homeless Prevention Council is administering Wellfleet's funds and will also help connect people with all the other funding that is available. And as we approach this winter, we really don't want anyone, our tenants or our landlords that provide year-round rentals, to be left out in the cold. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Are there income requirements or income contingencies on that funding?
No, there isn't. For the emergency program, the emergency program is really if you've lost income due to COVID, and it can provide up to $6,000 over a period of 1 year. Our rental assistance program does have, well, actually, our rental assistance program has income requirements. You have to be at 80% of area median and income or under. The emergency housing assistance goes up to 100% of income, because that is funded by community preservation funds, which allow you to do that.
Okay, thank you.
There are a lot of state and federal funds available too that the Homeless Prevention Council and in collaboration with HAC have available. So no one should hesitate to look to get help.
Okay, thank you, Elaine.
Thank
Do you have
you.
any other announcements?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay, not seeing any. Mass development presentation and vote authorizing the town of Wellfleet to participate in the Mass Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. Mike, you look like you want to speak on this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Yes, you have before you tonight a vote to authorize the town to participate in the Massachusetts Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, otherwise known as PACE. This program is administered by Mass Development, and with us tonight is Wendy O'Malley from Mass Development, who wants to give you a brief presentation on the program itself. Wendy?
Hello.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi, you can hear me okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time to hear about the PACE Massachusetts program. I believe you already received a copy of the presentation ahead of the meeting. So what I'd like to do is just give you a brief verbal overview of the program. This is a new financing program that's available to commercial and industrial property owners in Massachusetts for energy improvements. This financing program is unique in that it is tied to the property or runs to the land rather than being tied to the borrower, as alternative financing for energy improvements tends to be. This will allow property owners to access financing that will allow them to improve their buildings with energy improvements and related items that are funded from savings identified from those energy improvements. It has to be positive cash flow in order for the project to be approved by Mass Development and the Department of Energy Resources, who are the program administrators of this program. We just opened this program statewide about 3 months ago and made it available. And we've been working with municipalities across the state in order to authorize them each to opt into the program, which is a requirement of the program. For any property owner to access the financing, a municipality must first opt into the program via a vote or a vote by the Board of Selectmen or City Council, which is why we're here tonight. This financing will allow property owners to improve their buildings in a more comprehensive manner because we have financing that runs up to 20 years as a maximum term. So it should allow a property owner to really look at a wider range of improvements. It allows energy efficiency and renewable energy improvements to be installed on the property. And as I said, they have to be funded from savings. This financing program is repaid via a betterment assessment that's placed on the property and secured by a lien. This is a voluntary assessment that the property owner voluntarily agrees to. And it's third-party financing where the property owner chooses the capital provider who is going to finance the project. So Mass Development is not asking the town of Wellfleet or any municipalities to fund the project. Mass Development is not issuing any bonds. This is all third-party financing intended to allow property owners to access a different type of capital that won't add additional debt to their balance sheet where alternative financing would for energy improvements. So we're really excited. We've had 34 municipalities opt in to date on this program. We're looking forward to working and installing projects across the Commonwealth, which will allow property owners to really keep their businesses competitive, to keep their energy prices low, to keep their buildings clean and energy efficient, and vital and high performing in their community. So with that, am here to answer any questions that the board has tonight.
Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a couple questions on the material that was sent to us or is included in our meeting packet. One of them, so the eligibility, it says multifamily, 5 or more units, basically apartment complexes. But then it says in parentheses that the municipality is not eligible. What does that mean?
So because the financing is repaid via a betterment assessment, under the Mass General laws, a betterment assessment has to be billed and collected in the same manner as property taxes. And municipalities and federal government entities don't pay property taxes. So that makes municipal entities ineligible for PACE financing.
Okay. Another is, it says that the minimum project amount is $250,000. Is that correct?
Correct. So this is, I neglected to mention, this is a program for existing buildings. And yes, the target amount is for $250,000 and up because it is a rather complex financing. There are fees associated with the financing. So when you're looking at these projects and what makes sense, that was the target number that we came up with.
Okay. That essentially means that over a 20-year period that the project has to generate $13,000 essentially in savings per year to meet the requirements. I just think there's very few properties in Wellfleet that could take advantage of it. I know there's a couple. It'd be much better. I know it's impossible to change it right now, but it would be much better if the minimum award was lower so that more properties could be eligible for this. Thank you.
Understood. That is just a target number. It's not a statutory number, so it's a suggestion. It's a voluntary financing. So if a property owner did want to enter into the financing, understanding that this, there is a minimum set of fees because of who's engaged in the transaction and the capital structure, we'd be happy to talk with that property owner. That's just a target number. And let me add that under this program, you can finance the ancillary items that are related to that measure. So for instance, solar, you can include a roof replacement if a roof is necessary with that solar installation, which the roof is usually the more costly item and the item that's usually not usually financeable through alternative means. So this is where PACE can really help a property owner maybe install a project that couldn't move forward with an alternative financing option.
Okay. And then I would just ask if we have any idea of how many properties might be eligible based on the savings criteria. To me, I can only think of maybe a dozen. And I'm always hesitant to have something that only benefits a few rather than the larger group of commercial properties. So thank you.
Sure. I appreciate your comments. I don't think it's going to apply to a huge amount of properties in Wellfleet, just, knowing the town the way I do. But if it does apply to a property, I do think it would make a difference in the community in terms of allowing that property to stay viable in the community and hopefully higher performing. The reason we're actually here tonight is because we've had an actual request from a property owner directly at Mass Development for consideration of PACE financing for a project. So that is the actual reason we are here presenting the program, because we've had a direct request.
Okay, Helen, I think you had your hand up next.
Yeah, just a ballpark fees. You mentioned fees, ballpark.
Yes. So under the financing structure, there is a financing fee paid to Mass Development as the program administrator and the organizer of the program. It's paid dependent on the amount of the project financing. So for under $3 million, it's 2.5% of the financed amount. And then there are fees that are paid to the paying agent, which is the lockbox or the actual, they handle the cash transfer or the money transfer of the assessment from the municipality. And then there's also a fee paid to the betterment assessment consultant who helps with the ongoing servicing of the loan, the financing in terms of the assessment requirements that are in place. They help us set up with the town of Wellfleet in terms of identifying how the PACE assessment could actually be billed and collected through the system, and then they monitor it ongoing for Mass Development. So there are some set amount of fees that are paid to those entities under this. So that's where it is a more complex financing arrangement than an alternative, maybe a residential customer would receive directly from a bank, because this is an assessment. There are laws that we have to follow under the MGL that require us to bill and collect it a certain way and engage certain entities to administer the program. We also have a set of guidelines and financing documents and agreements that are statewide and applicable to every project and every entity who finances the project. And as the program administrator, we work with the capital provider, the municipality, and all the entities in terms of putting together the transaction for the assessment and the lien.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Justina?
Thank you. And so Would it then fall to the town to collect the betterment with property tax?
We would ask you to bill and collect the betterment assessment on the property tax bills, a separate line item, and only if the municipality receives it in addition to the tax payment would we ask you to disperse that assessment to the paying agent that Mass Development is contracted with, and the paying agent would disperse the assessment to the capital provider who financed the project.
So the town may end up with responsibility for, in this case, it's just one entity, but the town may end up with some responsibility for administering this.
We are asking you to bill and collect it, but we're not asking you to enforce any default. We're not asking you to take any action. All we're asking you to do is agree to bill and collect the PACE assessment on behalf of the program and the property owner. So it can be.
And our staff would have support in doing that. You would tell us how much and so forth.
Correct. So we would set up all the financing documents, including the payment schedule prior to closing. We would help set up the electronic schedule that would be theoretically entered into your system. That would be basically the going forward schedule for the assessment as it needs to be billed and collected each cycle.
Thank you very much.
But the town would be under no obligation to pay should the loan holder default.
Correct.
Yeah. There's no financial obligation.
No.
To the town. Yeah.
There is no financial. You are a pass-through. Mass Development is a pass-through.
Ryan, you got your hand up again?
Yeah, just a hypothetical question. What happens if there is a PACE award to a property and let's say due to erosion the property no longer exists after 10 years of a 20-year loan?
So this is underwritten by a third-party capital provider who's going to look at this financing like they would any other loan. They're going to look at the property, I'll call it the future existence and all the viability of the building and any other items that they would look at in a normal underwriting. So I can't speak to how it would work specifically for PACE, but I would think that if there was an issue or a thought that there could be an issue with the building's viability in the future, my thought is that there wouldn't be a capital provider who would want to finance the project, and that wouldn't be going forward.
So I have a question. You said that the betterment's attached to the actual property and not the owner of the property.
Correct. So
I'm assuming that when that property changes hands, that betterment's attached to that until it's paid.
Correct.
Back. I guess my only concern there would be, in Wellfleet, our commercial areas is pretty small, and I guess I'm just wondering, is there a potential for? I don't see a real downside because it's financing and that's basically all it is. But is there potential for, properties to be sort of over leveraged by their betterment and then not be attractive to someone if someone were to foreclose or not be able to function on their property there? They got this big loan and did all these energy, things that doesn't necessarily make you a financially viable business. By borrowing this, could it put a piece of property into a position where that property has this betterment attached that makes it unattractive to anyone to utilize? Because I get a little bit nervous about unutilized properties that already exist in town. So
there are two reasons that PACE works. You can always prepay the assessment in full prior to any transfer. That can be voluntary. So that can be one way the PACE financing is satisfied. But speaking to the situation you spoke about, because PACE improvements are repaid annually through the energy savings that are generated by the operation of those improvements, That's why the actual structure of PACE makes sense, because you're actually funding that improvement by redirecting what you would have paid for utility expenses if you had operated the building on the system that exists there currently versus the improvements that were installed. And you're redirecting those funds that you would have paid essentially to the utility, and then taking that money and using it towards the assessment payment, which is repaying the improvements. Those improvements are paid off at some point, and that excess cash flow then goes back into the business. So that's one reason it actually makes sense for a property owner and a business and a bank, because when they're looking at it because this is funded out of net operating income instead of upfront out-of-pocket funds. That's what a property owner is looking at when they're trying to, install these improvements alternatively. So it makes more sense to them in that way. And there are also concerns that you spoke about, but that's how PACE generally addresses it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I wasn't totally clear on that, that aspect of the repayment.
And that's part of Mass Development's job and the DOER's job, and that's in the guidelines. That's a statutory requirement that it has to be a positive cash flow improvement project. The savings have to be identified and they have to be documented according to the protocols that the DOER has put in place in the technical guidelines for the calculation of the energy savings. And that's where the kind of rather complex calculations come in. And this is why it's a higher level type of financing that a property owner would access as alternative capital than what they may access. And so hopefully it just allows them to do a better job in terms of these improvements, not doing the low hanging fruit, really trying to keep that building at a higher level and better for your community.
Okay. Justina, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I've had all my questions answered and then some. I think this sounds like a great program for Wellfleet, and I can understand why the business owners asked us to approve it. And Wendy, I think you've given a great explanation. I understand it much more than I did when I read the printed presentation. So I'm ready to vote yes on this.
Someone want to call the question? Ryan, do you have your hand up still?
Yeah, I have my hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So this kind of is kind of related to what your concern was about leveraging a property. So one of the things that this funds is solar installations. And we know that solar PVC panels decline in efficiency over time. Could it be into it, or how is the financing structured for something like that? Because it could, let's say like 10 years down the road, those solar panels might be costing more than what their benefit is to a new property owner.
Under the solar proposals, we typically see under a 20-year scenario that the savings are identified to pay for the project and a roof, frankly, and more. With the SREC, or I'm sorry, SMART credits that the state has, in addition to maybe other tax credits or incentives that an owner can incorporate into the project. In terms of degrading on panels, I'm not a solar panel expert, but my understanding is they do degrade, but they degrade just a small percentage, nothing that would really directly affect the output in a significant way. The financing term is dependent on the useful life of the energy improvements that are in the project. So often I actually use solar as the example that qualifies for the maximum 20 years because you have the components, usually the inverter. And if the inverter has a warranty, if it doesn't has a useful life, it has a warranty for 20 years, it does qualify. And so that's where there really is a lot of documentation that the DOER requires for this project, and it's not outside of the requirements that you would need to submit under a solar project or an energy efficiency project for the programs that are outside of PACE. So we align with the Mass Save, or I guess on the CAPE, it would be the CAPE Light Compact incentive programs, and the Smart Renewable program. So all those protocols, all those requirements also are in place when you're accessing PACE financing.
Okay.
So hopefully that addresses your concern about the project not being as viable for the full term.
Yeah. Does someone want to call the question? I think we've gotten enough information. I don't see a downside to it. I don't know that it'll be utilized very much in Wellfleet. But any way that people can get financing to move towards renewable energy seems like a positive impact to me.
I
so
agree.
if anybody can take advantage of it, I'm for it.
So I move to authorize the town of Wellfleet to participate in the Massachusetts Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, known as PACE.
Helen, second.
Roll call vote.
Helen, I.
Janet, I.
Christina, I.
Brian, aye.
Michael, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks a lot, Wendy.
Yeah,
Thank you for your time. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Hey, you too. Okay. COVID-19 update and recommendations, town finances and accounting update. Maria, do you have the stuff from Rich and the DOR stuff? Do you want to speak on that?
I do. I can't see it at the same time, I guess.
Question, why is this under COVID?
Well, it probably shouldn't be under COVID anymore.
It started coming
Not
up as
sure.
COVID in the beginning, and I've just kind of kept it there. It can be moved somewhere else for the next one, but just to get it out of the way and early in the agenda for our guests' sake, I put it here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So you got a couple of things in your agenda packet, including findings and recommendations from Rich Bienvenu, who have been working with us to get the tax cap recapitulation and tax rate set. You also have in there a sort of a status of things from Miriam. And I think Miriam, just out of respect for her time, I would want to sort of throw it to Miriam so she could talk to you a little bit about where things are. She's on here somewhere.
Yep.
Sure. Miriam?
Yep, I'm here. Good evening,
Hi.
everybody.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. So you have my memo. So I'm not going to go through that specifically, but I do have some good news. We, since the weekend posting of the tax bills, we've received over $160,000 in tax payments between online payments, prepays, and pay through checks that have already been received since Saturday. So things are looking up in that regard, and I think we'll be in good shape.
Are we still looking at a cash flow shortfall?
Well,
With cash flow?
The cash flow issue is multifaceted. I'm sure when we have an accountant on board, we'll be able to look more closely at where revenues were short because of COVID. Specifically, the summer didn't turn out the way we had anticipated. But as far as cash availability for paying bills, we're getting up to speed. And I think with the internal borrowing, just in the meantime for the December 1st assessment, which I noted in my memo that we actually had a reduction in that cost. Nauset Regional School District reduced their assessment. They are off their 1/12 budget, and we're down from over $1 million due on December 1st to just over 700,000. So that's a positive thing. And I think that we're making good progress with Lisa Souvet, who's helping us work through some of the accounting issues that have surfaced. And I feel good about that. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but we will get there. I'm confident in that. So, and I was thrilled to read Rich Bienvenu's memo, because I think that was comprehensive, and I hope that it answered a lot of your questions. I know that you had concerns, persistent concerns through last meeting, and I'm hoping that his memo has alleviated some of those concerns.
Ryan?
Yes. So Miriam, just a question for clarification. The September room tax payment, was that based off of rentals in September or rentals in August?
It was June through September. It was a quarterly payment.
Okay. So that's the same one as last time?
Correct.
Okay. And did Nauset give any reason as to the reduction? I'm just curious.
Well, we had already paid the same amount that we intended to pay in December, so the 1.02 million, and so they took that as a credit toward the entire FY21 budget, which was lower. So the balance, they spread over 3 payments, which we would have been paying 3 quarterly payments anyway, but each one came to less than the 1/12 budget would have been, because of course the 1/12 budget was based on the FY20 school budget.
Okay, so it's because Nauset's reduced their programs, essentially?
Well, their FY20, it's the comparison between their FY20 and their FY21 budget.
Okay.
Janet?
Excuse me. A quick question, Miriam. You said that tax bills went out online, or they're posted online. What did you say about tax bills? Because I didn't see anything about that.
Right. So I don't think Karen anticipated that they were going to be posted online before they were mailed. But to our surprise and joy, they were posted online on Saturday, so people could view their bills and pay them online, or view them and then pay them with a check. So they were actually physically mailed today. So people will start receiving them, the actual paper bill in the next couple of days. But online, you can view your bill and you can pay it online, or you can pay it with a check.
Great. I didn't know that. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, someone else have the hand up? I thought, no? Okay, so as far as the motion here, which is to approve enlisting the services of the Mass Department of Revenue Financial Review Services, that's the same as the DLS, is that right, Maria?
Yes.
DOR, Department of Revenue.
Right, it's the department, the Division of Local Services, or?
Yeah, Division of Local Services, not
DLS.
Right, there's 2
Okay.
state DLSs. So
Right. DLS is a portion of the DOR.
Yeah, okay. I was just,
so the Technical Assistance Bureau, that's that group, and they have a financial management review team that has worked with towns across the Commonwealth. It's a free service that they provide. This is something that Rich Rich Bienvenu is recommending, and staff is too, frankly. It's a way to have folks that they're trained and this is what they do. They come and they meet with staff. They interview folks. They're basically looking at policies and procedures and practices, and comparing them to what are known best practices in the accounting world, and making recommendations. They'll provide a report of their findings. I sent you one that was done for the Marina Fund, just that portion of the town's budget, back in 2009, I think. And it kind of gives you a sense of the work that they do. There's no charge for the service. It's recommended that we get a permanent town accountant on board and let that person sort of get their sea legs, so that they have a good handle on our system to be better prepared to answer the questions and inquiries and that sort of things that the group has. They do require a motion from the town. For that reason, this is, and just to inform you, it's on your agenda. They would be able to come in the spring, because they've got a few ahead of us. And in the meantime, we would have a staff meeting with the staff that work on financial matters for the town, just as sort of an introduction with this group and to give folks a sense of how the process works and what kinds of things they'll be looking for and what kind of backup information and reports and questions that they'll have for staff.
Yeah, I do know that Eastham has had this done in its recent past, and they're still implementing some of these things as time goes on that the DLS had recommended. So I think it makes sense to do it. But that's what I was wondering. It seemed to me it would make sense to have an accountant in place before they come to get their bearings. So, Justina?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. I certainly saw it in Rich Bienvenu's write-up, but I do think we have a lot going on. We don't have the accountant yet. Haven't closed fiscal year 2020. Still aren't out of the weeds with the cash flow. Rich outlined a whole course of action we need to get through with the accounting systems. Lisa Souvet, the outside accountants, just started, and we're looking at the RFP from the Abrams Group. So I think this is a great thing to have on our to-do list, but I think I kind of don't think we need some more meetings with that Maria had referenced with the Department of Revenue and so forth. I think we need a little bit of time to get through some of these current problems.
The meeting I was referencing is a meeting of about an hour, just as an introduction to staff on what the financial management review entails. It's not
I'm a little concerned that the town accountant isn't on board to be at that meeting. I mean, I would like to start the process when we're a little further along.
Oh, the town accountant should be on. This meeting wouldn't happen until sometime closer to Christmas.
So was there a reason we need to approve it now?
If we want to get in the queue for the review, I wouldn't wait too long because, they're working with some towns that are ahead of us. So,
so it's a question of getting in line.
Kind of,
Yeah,
I mean, you could always, approve to have them do the review and change your mind and tell them you didn't want to if you wanted to do that for some reason.
Yeah, because we're in a little bit of a disarray right now. I think we could agree.
If I may, the folks at the DOR, the Technical Assistance Bureau, one that we've been in touch with used to be our rep. So, and another one has been helpful to me and has visited a couple of times. So they're not foreign bureaucrats who are go descend on us and spend a lot of time trying to figure us out. They already have the lay of the land. So I don't think it would be intrusive or disruptive. And they're the ones ultimately that we need to answer to anyway. So in my opinion, it makes sense to go through the DOR.
Yeah, they have a good handle on what our current situation is, in between accountants and,
So
these
we're in
folks have-
agreement, the accountant should be hired first.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're much closer in that process than, we were before, so.
Ryan?
Yeah, so, we definitely should ask for the DLS to come in and give us assistance. It seems like they're mostly concerned with establishing best practices, and, they take a while to implement. It doesn't really seem like they might necessarily be the best option for finding out where things went sideways. They could say, and with this timeline, we're probably looking at a delivery of final findings sometime either in the summer or in the fall. So that's a ways out. I'd also be interested if town staff could review the recommendations on the marina and see how many of those proposed actions were actually implemented or not. I can tell from some of them that they're not, but I can't speak on all of them.
Helen?
Yeah, two quick questions. Where are we in terms of hiring a new accountant? What stage are we at? Has the window of opportunity for applying closed? Have there been any applications? And my second question is, has all this material that we got in our packet, which is very helpful, been shared with the FinCom also, just to make sure they understand what is going on over in this sector of the town government? And through you, Mike, to Maria, I guess.
Yes, on all of the above. So the counting job posting closed on Friday. We didn't get an overwhelming response, as you might guess. We are looking to do interviews actually the end of next week with a group of folks that are vested interest in the position. I will say we had one applicant. I don't want to go into details about who the person is, but at least on paper seems to be very qualified. So that's good news. So we're going to go forward with the interviews probably the end of next week. The report that Rich Bienvenu sent me, I'm pretty sure that I sent that to, I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure I sent that to Fred, and I was on their meeting last week and talked about the status of things and the recommendations that were coming from Rich Bienvenu and status of where things were with cash flow and budget related items.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the DLS is basically a financial management review, which would basically give us some sort of determinations on, how we could better improve our functions and systems in town and the way, the situation,
Honestly,
in our current way of doing things and best practices to move forward. I still think that we kind of have an obligation to look into what happened prior, and issue a report to the town basically on where things kind of went wrong. And, maybe that's going to wind up being something simple and just tied to, the changing in accounting software, or maybe it's deeper, or I'm really not sure. But there's been, there's been forensic accounting and stuff thrown around. Forensic audit thrown around and stuff like that. And I just don't think that we're at that level, but I think it's important for the select board to do its due diligence also. So
in terms of recommendations to go forward, my recommendation is, and I share this with Rich, is the biggest things that happened here were you had a transfer from one financial software package to another. The ending balance of one didn't match the beginning balance of the other. So start there. There were a number of things that through going to the Vadar system didn't get fully set up. We're finding accounts that things were being charged to, but those were accounts that were closed. So, the level of difficulty is really a matter of, having an accountant. And I recommend that we keep someone like Lisa Souvet on to do the detail work. If you hire a forensic accountant, you're going to pay tens of thousands of dollars for them to tell you stuff that is already known, but they're not going to do the work. So if you have an accountant on, like we have Ms. Souvet on now, she's actually going through and doing the work that we already know was done either sloppily before or wasn't done correctly. So to hire a forensic accountant, they don't actually do the work to fix what we already know, having an accountant look at it is wrong. So, my recommendation is that you let us keep, the temporary accountant on, get the biggest, piece of this equation is getting a permanent town accountant on. So somebody's just going back to, when you started with your Vadar system, and basically getting, and Miriam can, chime in on this because she can better explain it than I can, but going back through and basically doing monthly reconciliations to make sure everything was correct. So
absolutely. I can tell you that the wheels started coming off the cart in March of 2019 when we lost our accountant, one of like 3 accountants ago. The Vadar system at that time was in grant form. We had applied for a grant. Brian Carlson was at the time the assistant town administrator responsible for the actual grant writing. It took a very long time to get that accomplished. And then Connie Boulos was our accountant at the time, and she did her best to push the administration to get and then to implement Vadar once we did receive the grant. And she left at the end of March of 2019, and it had yet to be implemented. At that point, we had a brand new interim treasurer, me, a brand new interim collector, Karen Murphy, and the beginnings of a brand new town clerk, which she's not necessarily part of the financial team, but just added to the turnover and the burden that Dan Hort had, soon to lose his assistant town administrator / town clerk. So he took on a lot of responsibility, but also didn't support the staff that he hired and put in place, meaning Karen and me and everybody else who was still there. So finally, in July or June, I'm sure they started the implementation of Vadar. And at that point, we had a brand new accountant who had been an assistant, but was not prepared for the challenges of the job. And after 6 weeks left. And then we again had an assistant accountant or assistant to the accountant in the accounting office. And she was left to set up this new accounting software. And she struggled, as we said before. She was unsupported, and it was not implemented correctly. Then eventually in late September, we started a new accountant, Gene, and he took a while to get in gear and realize the shortcomings of the implementation of VADAR. So he was kind of in denial for a long time, and I encouraged him to start from scratch and implement it again, but he was reluctant, and things just never really improved. So that's where we are. It was a collision of a lot of turnover in the accounting department everywhere else, and a new accounting software, which eventually will be a positive thing once we get it in place and get the bugs worked out. But at this point, the chart of accounts, which is the crux of everything, your lines of expense, your lines of revenue, those things are not set up correctly. And Lisa Souvet is working through bit by bit, and it's a very fine carpentry. It's a finished carpentry. It's a lot of detail work, and every day she's coming to me with questions. She's going to Jane with questions. They're running reports. They're working out bugs. They're creating links that weren't there. They're fixing links that were wrong. It's just going to take a lot of detail work to get that done. But
kind of work that Lisa Souvet is doing is not the work that a forensic accounting firm would be doing. The forensic accounting firm would be coming up with recommendations. And
I was just going to point out, number one point of order. We haven't finished with the motion that was on the that should have been on the floor about the Mass Department of Revenue, and then we would be going to Mike DeVosto after that. I think we're getting.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. So I think Helen, do you want to speak on the DLS thing, or do you want to? Because maybe we should just put that up.
I would like to hear, if you don't mind, and no offense to anybody, but I would like to hear the end of Maria's sentence, what Maria was in the middle of saying.
Oh, sorry.
Quickly. Yeah, it's okay. Just, Maria, if you finish that thought.
Yeah, no,
please.
just the difference between the work of a forensic accountant and the work of actually having an accountant like Lisa Souvet and a person who you hire is when they're literally looking almost, by groups of transactions to see whether they're posted correctly, all of that kind of work, and fixing it. A forensic accountant might look at things and say, oh, you need to fix that, but you'll pay them $80,000 and it still won't be fixed. That's the difference between one form of an accounting measure and actually having boots on the ground accountant actually doing the corrections, which, Lisa's really bright and is, making great headway on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anyone's calling for forensic accounting anymore, but I have heard people in the community concerned that we may need it. And I just was only asserting that there should be all the other adequate steps taken before we even entertain that idea. If whatever comes up leads to some suspicion of something, that's one thing. But basically what I was saying is there's no reason to suspect that there was anything criminal or criminal malfeasance taking place that would warrant a forensic accounting. I didn't mean, and I don't know if maybe you misunderstood what I was saying earlier about that, but I wasn't recalling for that at all right now. But I do think we should probably call the question as far as the DOR thing. If anybody,
did anyone make a motion?
No, we need to make a motion.
Listing the services of the Massachusetts Department of Revenue Financial Review Services.
Second.
Okay, a roll call vote on this?
Helen, aye.
Janet, aye.
Justina, aye.
Brian, aye.
Michael, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, so that'll get us in line for that, and hopefully all the ducks will line up in a row. Now, as far as determining where things went sideways, I very much appreciate Miriam's summary of all the sort of chaos and openings and changeover at town hall that may have ultimately led to the accounting situation that we're in. It was good to have it summarized. That said, I think that there's I know that there's been accounting issues that date back further than that as well. And I think it would make sense for us to pursue, still looking into it as a select board. And just, it's just basically due diligence, where we went sideways, basically. That way we wind up with a public report, basically, that establishes a timeline and what steps have been taken to rectify the issue. We initiated the process at the last meeting, so I guess my proposal here is basically to appoint 2 board members to speak with relevant staff and just sort of determine whether we even need to look into it any further. It's basically just the first step in yep, go ahead, Helen.
Yeah, I disagree with that because what I was going to say was positive. I wanted to thank Maria and Miriam and whoever else contributed to untangling this and putting it before all of us, Mike, at the same time. And the public can also access it. I really think that having 2 of us go off to the side and get a body of information that is more efficiently and quickly, in terms of people spending their time on it, shared and understood by the 5 of us at the same time, right? With the TA, assistant TA, Miriam and whoever else, all together in this kind of meeting. I feel that having this agenda item come up a number of times instead of sweeping it under the rug has been very efficient in my experience, and that we should just keep on with this. In other words, as things progress, that we'd have another agenda item about it, and not to have just 2 of us going off and taking up staff time and select board member time, because those 2 members would have to go through every single thing again here in a public meeting to share it with the rest of us. So, Mike, why don't we not have that? Sure. I would be interested in anything that would be learned, but I would also want all of the rest of us to know it exactly the same way I would take it in. This is really important. And by the time we get to the end of this, untangling this and having a new situation set up with a new accountant and having gone through the process with the state people, we will all be up to speed in a way that the select board has perhaps never been up to speed. The other reason not to have 2 of us going off on the side is that this whole meeting is accessible to the FinCom. They can go to the archives, the video audio archive, and listen to it. And that's really important, in my opinion. And I think it's also more efficient and less time consuming. Thank you.
Ryan?
Yes. We didn't initiate an investigation, and you can't have an investigation without investigating. If you're just relying on, some of the information that we've been distributed so far, we don't have a good, yes, we have a broad outline of some of the systemic issues that happened. But we do not have a clear understanding of exactly the scope or the what the impacts are and the condition of everything. I don't know the best way to do an investigation. My preference would be to have an agent that would then report back to us. But I don't think we'll be able to find a qualified agent anytime quickly. Yeah, I don't know. I think we have to do our due diligence that we did initiate an investigation. So, we have to investigate to serve both the citizenry and the spirit of our charter. Thank you.
Justina?
Yeah, I think this is I agree with Ryan. We have an investigation. We have oversight. We're the select board. I think people in town are concerned. There's a lot of talk about tax bills, and there have been accounting problems. I think that the step of talking to key staff members and department heads is important. The department heads have a unique perspective because the department head budgets is where the rubber hits the road. It's where the disbursement happens and the department heads have to track their budgets. And I would like to hear if that function is going smoothly and if there's been any glitches or whether, that's good news. And that could be wrapped up quickly. I think it's important that they be able to speak confidentially to the select board. We have just lost a key employee Courtney, who's, I think it would be nice if she could be debriefed by the select board. She was instrumental in helping on the budgets, and she knows a lot. And I think that I would like staff to be able to speak confidentially, and I think that we can wrap that up quickly. Rich Bienvenu outlined a terrific roadmap, but it's very accounting department centric, and talking to the department heads gives another key puzzle because that's where the budget get implemented. So I think that's a quick, easy first step of the investigation that Mike outlined. It's a logical step, doesn't take long to do. And so I think it's a good first step.
I have a question, Mike.
Alan, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I agree. We should investigate. That's what we're doing right now. And when we hear from we get continuous accounting from the person from the state, that will be more information. What I'm a little confused about is, so you are proposing for the five of us to meet in executive session with a series of department heads or with people in their accounting network, within the municipality. It's unclear to me.
Alan, can I clear it up?
Hold on a minute. I just want to be sure. So that would be a way for us to all get the information and for such people to be able to speak confidentially. Otherwise, there's no other way for the five of us to receive the same information. If one of us or whatever went and spoke to an employee, the employee would confide, would say what they wanted. I'm not really sure that I would then be comfortable sharing the information I got from that employee with the rest of us. We'd have to share it in executive session. Would it even qualify? And I am all for a very rigorous look at this, of course, but there's no mechanism for us to do it as a board, which is the only way we can do it, so that we can all share the information. Unless we do it together.
Can I just clarify that what I'm proposing here is pretty simple. Basically, the mechanisms that we have are to appoint an agent or to do it ourselves, or to maybe appoint an agent in the future it is deemed necessary. But basically, this is basically to appoint 2 board members to determine whether there's a need for further inquiry, right? So essentially, those 2 select board members would be acting as the agent, just as if you were to appoint any agent, you would be getting the information from the agent. In this circumstance, you'd be getting the information from the 2 board members. That way, there's both people there. It can be, transparent and but also give people the opportunity to speak confidentially.
Okay. Well,
this is really
Mike, I've already heard from people on staff in the past. I can tell you, we need to be concerned. I'm not
Helen, you're
passing
getting
on
the information
any
that, hold on. Helen, you're getting the information that the rest of the board's not getting. So see, I don't understand your logic here because
the logic is this. I am promoting us all getting that information. I didn't request that information from staff. It came to me from staff, right? I didn't violate the charter there. So what I'm saying is, this is a good process we're doing, but I have been around for agents coming in and giving us that kind of advice. Let's say, I agree with Ryan, it's a little short notice and too much money, and what for? He didn't say some of those things. To get somebody from the outside, but the kind of advice you get from people like that who have no sense of what's going on doesn't make sense. I think we've all agreed that it has not been going well. I haven't perceived there to be any personally criminal behavior, which would jumpstart, a forensic investigation. And we are tipping into and actually already in the process of a deep internal review. Right now, we are going to find out all this stuff. Staff is supplying the information, and we're at the beginning of a new era with a new accountant. And I think this is going to be sorted out, because the point is, let's say you say 2 of us, Mike. Does that mean 2 of us with 1 person? Well, I would like to be one of those people, but I don't think it's necessary. So to answer you, I wasn't contradicting my thoughts about this. I was just saying I'd heard about it. And actually the most valuable thing about this whole agenda item in my mind, it's all been good, is Miriam's history of what's been going on. Just having that laid out like that is a deep internal review item right there. That is the best historical account of what's been going on right under our noses for years now. So,
Ryan.
Thank you.
I'm just going to be really quick. So think of it as if we were forming a subcommittee. It happens all the time with other boards and committees when they're working on something. They'll form a subcommittee of 2 people. If it's a 5-member board committee, usually 2 people to work on one specific issue. And then the subcommittee comes back to the main body and basically reports their findings. And that's the way to look at it. If we do appoint 2 select board members to investigate the issue, is to kind of think of it as if we were forming a subcommittee to look at the issue rather than, that. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
And this is also Helen, hold on 1 second. This is also just to determine a need for further inquiry. Maybe there is no need for further inquiry. I mean, this is what we don't know, and I think it's part of our chartered, duties in a way to actually oversee, to provide oversight, So, Justina, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, I agree with what Ryan said. It's a subcommittee, and we can't not give staff a voice. And I think that I'm just going to have to trust that a subcommittee is a valid mechanism. It's not officially a subcommittee, but it's agents. And there can be a standardization of questions, for example, and I think that we can standardize the data.
I mean, the way I sort of see this as pretty casual to just sort of go out, determine whether there's a need for further inquiry, see if people's accounts basically have a similar timeline, where things went sideways, resolve the fact, basically be able to speak with Lisa and Rich and the other relevant staff members, and then in the end, have a public record, a report. But this is really just a very initial step of just, having two members look into appointing two members to act as agents to determine whether we need to look any further than this. I mean, maybe that's the end of the line, Helen,
Mike?
go ahead.
It's very clear to all of us, I think we need to look further into this. If it turns out that, first of all, I've been on these so-called subcommittees. You have to document just the same way you do with open meetings. Every single thing that goes on, particularly if you're going to report it back, has to be documented. Okay, number one. Number two, I only did that twice, and it felt funky to me both times. I would definitely check with the open meeting law people yourselves. Don't trust me about this, about how funky this is, in my opinion.
Why would this be funky? It's two people.
Because it's two people
acting
from the board. If you had one of us and somebody, let's say from the FinCom, now that would be kosher. Okay? That might be a very good idea, actually. But what I want to ask
maybe that's a better idea. This is just a draft.
Okay, but wait, let me say something else.
Yeah.
I want to ask the four of you, just any answer is a good answer. Do you feel, yes or no, that this whole issue, which we got a lot of clarity from Miriam and Maria about tonight, and which we have already been educated about previously, does any of us feel that it doesn't bear further inquiry? Don't we all feel that we need to look at it more closely? Just unrelated question to anything except exactly what I asked. Does any of us feel that we don't need to know more about this?
Well, I mean, clearly, I think we do need to know more about this. That's why I put this little draft proposal together.
Well, Janet, Ryan, Justina, do we all feel we need to know more about this?
I think I've been pretty clear that I think we need to investigate the issue.
So I feel that this is getting more complicated and more convoluted, and I can't figure out from the beginning of this what exactly is being proposed and desired.
Did you get the email I sent?
Wait.
Yep, go ahead.
A month ago, everyone was in a panic and we didn't know what was going on. Maria has handled this well. She gave, Mr. Bienvenu gave a really good report on what's happening. We've just voted to get the services of the Mass DOR. I think we are moving along. We have Ms. Souvet working with us. We're working on getting an accountant. Maybe I agree. I hear what Michael's saying, that we need to talk to staff. And Miriam is part of that staff. Maria is part of that staff. And, it's really, to me, the staff should come up and talk whether they feel awkward or not. And there should be like a staff meeting about anybody who's involved or who's been involved with the finances to come forward and have a staff meeting possibly with Maria. And if Michael as chair wants to attend and a finance committee person wants to attend, but to me, it's getting really convoluted. And I don't see, between the five of us, I don't see a clear agreement right now tonight.
Well, I'd like to call the question because we
Good.
won't know if
Go
there's
ahead.
an agreement
Yeah.
unless we vote.
Good. Call it. What is the question?
Mike has a proposal.
Well, I move to appoint 2 board members. This could change too. I mean, it could be a member of the board and a member of FinCom or something like that. We haven't spoken to them, but I guess the motion would be, I move to appoint 2 board members to speak with department heads and relevant staff to determine the need for further inquiry. That's it.
Second,
Discussion, Mike?
Yep. Go ahead.
I'm going to vote against this because I think one board member and somebody from the FinCom would be efficient. And I agree with Janet. Can you, I beg you, can you withdraw that and have it be one person from the FinCom and one person from the Select Board? I'm trying to meet you halfway here. Please.
we haven't discussed it with FinCom. We could always add them later, but
So
we
how
do
about,
have a key staff member who's resigned that it would be nice to get an interview with. And I think that there are staff members who deserve a voice who might want to
Sure.
confidentiality. So I would like to get at least a vote on this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with it being 2 board members. I mean, that's what I put forward. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's fine with me the way it is. But.
yeah, it could be two appointed people. We could keep it open until it's satisfied everybody.
2 appointees.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it
How
simple.
about that, Mike?
Yeah. How about appoint 2 members, one of which from the select board, a minimum of 1 from the select board or something that way.
Just say the chair. The chair will appoint 2 appointees.
We'll appoint 2 people to investigate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that could include you, Michael, or whatever. Could be.
All right. I move.
Oh, no, wait a minute. No, hold on. Not the chair appoints. Hold on. If you want to have us appoint 2 people to investigate that, I could feel good about that. I don't think it's necessary, but I'm meeting everybody halfway. But not to have the chair appoint them, have us appoint them, okay? 5 of us, okay? Please. I respect your
I mean, now we're gonna be waiting another 2 weeks to do this. So I really want to move on.
Yeah, I would like to do this.
Moving ahead without us anyhow. So
Okay. Why don't, I mean, I actually think it makes sense to just, I think the motion makes sense as it is. It's on the table. Appoint 2 board members to speak with department heads and relevant staff to determine the need for further inquiry.
Second,
It's seconded. Can we just take a vote on this?
yeah, I'll say yes to support the chair.
Okay. Janet,
Aye.
roll call vote?
Aye.
Nay.
Justina, aye.
Ryan, aye.
Michael, aye. The motion carries 4-1. Okay,
So, Mike, I have a question.
sure.
The documentation of every piece of information that is received in these interviews. It's unclear to me whether 2 of you are going to show up. 2 of us.
It could be on Zoom, huh?
Or is it going to be 2 members of this board showing up to speak with one staff member in confidential meetings, and then notes are going to be taken, and then the information is going to be delivered how to us? In an executive session?
I would think so. We would have
Okay.
to clear that.
So now we have to figure out who the two people are going to be. And I would be, I guess, reluctantly, but I would offer myself as one of them.
Well, I would
I
actually,
think I would be,
I would appoint Ryan and Justina. They're both very good, unless Michael wants to do it. Are we doing this now, though?
we have to. Otherwise, we have to wait 2
Or we
weeks.
have to wait another meeting?
Yeah. Meanwhile, we'll already know a lot more by then.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I would do it with another member. It's up to the
You
board.
want to do it? Who do you want, Michael?
I don't actually have a preference.
Does it make sense to have the vice chair do it?
No,
But you're the vice chair, Janet.
I am the vice chair. I'm in charge of vices. No, I don't like, I'm actually very good with numbers, but I don't want to get into this. I just don't want to get into
You're
this.
calm gravitas.
I trust, first of all, I trust Miriam Spencer and I trust Maria Broadbent. I trust Mike Travato and Michael DeVasto, and I trust other people better than myself. This would drive me crazy. It is driving me crazy.
Guys, it wouldn't drive me crazy. I've got a really good sense of the whole landscape of this, starting from before our various agenda items on it. I have, I want to say modestly, I have long-term and good connection to staff. I'm sure they would complain to my face about certain things, but they haven't necessarily. And I think I would be a good counterpoint to this. I'm just willing to listen.
Well, my only
A very good sense of what's already been going on. And I have continuity into the deep past with the accounting department. And I trust Maria and Miriam and Karen and the town clerk and Ms. Tesson and everybody else.
It's not it. No, everybody trusts them.
And Maria. But the point is, therefore, I think I'd be neutral and happy to hear anything further that was going to be said that hasn't already been said to me in confidence. Okay? So I would like to do this with Mike, if that's what you want to do. And I'm not going to be the one taking notes because I don't think, that part of it really has to be accurate. If we're going to be doing this apart from the five of us, I really think it would have been more efficient either way, but I'm willing to do it and take the time. And it's going to be quite a lot of time, Mike.
Well, it may be.
We can break it down.
It
We
doesn't
can
have to
split up.
happen all at once.
Probably need somebody with good note-taking skills, though.
That's me, unfortunately.
Helen, are you going to be able to let the other person talk? Because that's what interviewers do.
I'm really good at interviewing people. I've never interviewed you, so you wouldn't know that.
That's my fatal flaw interviewing, is that I think that they want to hear about me. And then I find out.
Let's move this along. I want William Hewig, if that's how he says his name. He's been here patiently for a long time.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
We could even have an executive session and have all the.
We're going to have an executive session pretty soon. Maybe we should just meet before this to a point.
Let's do that.
And think about it more, Michael, but let's.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
So we're taking no action?
We'll take no action on this right now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's think about it.
All right. Comcast licensing agreement.
There's still COVID updates and
Oh,
recommendations.
COVID updates. Okay.
I don't have any. Still out there.
Yeah,
It's on the agenda.
okay. So, Mike,
Mhm.
it's the reason we always have this on the agenda is that we have fast breaking news all the time. And most recently, I think at our last meeting, we approved the plan, the guidelines that came from the guidelines and mandates that came from the Board of Health, recommended by the Board of Health and the Health Department. And then a few days later, the governor doubled down on what's required. And roughly, having gone over it with Hillary at the time, just to be sure I understood, after reading both, obviously. I have a question for the board. To the four of you, when we approved that plan, the document that came from the Board of Health and the Health Department, right? It was at our last meeting, I think. Yeah, there were guidelines in there, and then there were some mandates. And one of them was that, and we tweaked it so it'd be really clear, right? That if you're in a public building here in Wellfleet, you have to have a face mask on if you're moving through the building. If you're, we were very specific about it, unless you're in your office by yourself. But I want to ask the board if it was their understanding, because it was mine, reality checking here. To me, that meant that if I was in the presence of another person anywhere in the building, whether it was an office or a hallway or going in and out of the building or whatever, I would have to have a mask on. To me, that was very clear from that language. I would like to ask the four of you if that's what you also understood. It could just be yes or no.
So Governor Baker has said that you need to wear a mask, period, when out in public. And if you're walking down the street, if you're jogging, if you're biking, if you're doing anything, you were supposed to have a mask on now. So what happened 2 weeks ago, a month ago, it's now been updated that you're supposed to be wearing a mask all the time.
Yes, I know. But
why are we talking about 2 weeks ago?
Are you
Because
referring to
I'm
workplace safety guidelines, Helen?
I'm at, yes, the document we got from the Board of Health. Janet, I understand that. I understand the language, which I went over again today from the state. That happened a few days after our vote. I was asking you all very specifically about the language we voted on, which is still in place.
Yes.
And is, okay? So you felt that, yes, okay. How about Justina
It's
and Ron?
very clear that that's what it said. If we were asking if that document said that, if it was clear that it said that you had to be wearing a mask in the presence of other people in town hall or in other buildings, then yeah, it's clear to me that it says that. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, that's
Okay.
all I want to know. I'm doing a reality check here, which is sometimes important for us to do because we can get to different places. So Ryan, Justina?
Yes.
Yes, and with it, my understanding was even if you weren't around people, as long as you were in a public space,
Yeah,
that you should be wearing a mask.
yeah.
Unless you were in your own office, let's say with the door closed,
Yep.
you could not. Yeah. So here's where I'm going with this. I've gotten quite a lot of feedback since that time over the last 2 weeks from people, a bit from staff, which I didn't, push on particularly, but also just from people who are hearing scuttlebutt. And I want to know through you, Mike, to Maria, I hate putting you on the spot, but it's my understanding that that isn't always complied with in the building unit, the town, it's all divided into building units, really, in terms of COVID. We have a hierarchy for, authority structures and supervisors and, us and all the regulatory boards. This isn't about that. This is about this equal playing field where anybody can infect anybody with COVID or not. And through you, Mike, to Maria, where are you personally about this? About people wearing masks in town hall? Because even though the playing field is horizontal and equal in terms of people being able to, everybody has to wear masks and anybody can infect anybody or not. But you are the person who's at the top of the administrative hierarchy. And where are you personally with yourself wearing masks, with other people wearing masks? Is this something which is complied with absolutely across the board now in town hall? And I am passing through me a lot of concern from people who, as I said, aren't even employed by the town. So whatever the answer, I truly want to know it. And going forward, it would be good to consider whatever your answer is about this, please.
Sure. So, I and all the other staff have been paying attention to your feedback and your guidance and the information put together by the health agent. I'm not seeing people that are walking the halls without masks on. Either they're wearing a mask or, like one of those kind of scarf things that covers, serves the same purpose. But I'm not seeing people that aren't complying with that. People are coming, I've had the pleasure of sitting across the hall from the bathroom. So I see the people that I see coming past my office to go to use that restroom are wearing masks. So, there might be once in a while somebody slips up and says, "Oh my gosh, I forgot," but then they go and put it on. So I'm feeling like we're trying our best to comply. I myself went out of state last weekend and went to a state that while I was looking for places to just spend a couple of days with my friends, went to New York, and New York was on the safe to travel list when I left and was changed to not a place you're allowed to travel with while I was there. So I've been working from home and will be for another week or so. I think everybody is trying their best to comply. I'm not seeing people walking around without some kind of face covering on.
Unless they're in their office alone with the door shut, right? Well, you wouldn't see that.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you have to be able to take your mask off sometimes, but I'm bringing this up yet again because of a good number of reports about non-compliance. And we're going into the worst part of the year for this. And we all know what's happening nationally. So,
and I think that's probably older information. We're looking into the HEPA air filters and what the options are there. Some of the other things that you suggested. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, we're going to watch things. I communicated with Hillary today and just said, listen, we got to roll with this. If it looks like we're going to get back to levels that we were, with infection rates and concerns from the spring, we're going to go back to having everybody who can work at home again. We're going to do what we need to do. I'm feeling like everybody's trying really hard to comply. I'm the information that no one's wearing masks, I'm not sure that that's current, to be honest with you.
okay, I appreciate that. And I hope that you understand why I brought it up, just because it's got to keep coming up until it's right across the board.
Yeah.
And there's no exception to it. Thank you.
Janet, do you have your hand up still, or is that old?
No, I'm definitely lowering it. Boop.
Justina?
Yeah, I also have, as Helen has, heard concerns that not full mask compliance, including Maria, some concerns perhaps you weren't wearing your mask. So I'm glad to hear it's being taken seriously, and you are telling us you understand the policy and don't have a problem with it.
I've been complying as far as I know. Yeah.
Well, we're all trying to, I walked into Stop and Shop without mine on the other day, and I wondered what was wrong with me because I got a lot of strange looks. But, there's a lot of nervousness in the air. So there's a lot of chatter in the air. But I wanted to just give you the courtesy of asking you directly that you are fine with it.
Whatever that is probably old information.
What?
I said whatever is not current information.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Okay. We're all on the same page then. Thanks for letting us talk it out with you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Can we move on to the next thing? Yeah. Okay. Board and committee appointments and updates. We got Comcast license agreement with Bill Hewig and the Cable Advisory Committee.
So I have a question, Michael.
Sure.
To Mr. Hewig and how do you say your name, Mr. Hewig?
Hewig.
Hewig, of course. And actually, is Mike Travato still on board here? So I'm hoping you're aware that over the last few years.
I am.
Yeah. Oh, where are you, Mike? Okay. Over the last few years, there are a number of people in Wellfleet and other towns on the Cape and other places around the world that do not have Wi-Fi capacity. And we've been hoping for at least 4 years that once Comcast's license comes up for renewal, we could pressure you to get Wi-Fi service available everywhere, or internet service, whatever. And I understand this is actually very helpful that it's taking one step where if there's a certain density, you will help out. But is there really, Mike Travato's really aware of this too. What can we do here in 2020, soon to be 2021, to really get cable, Wi-Fi, broadband, whatever, to everyone who needs it, because it is a safety issue. And now with COVID, it is a learning issue for students, people working. So what are your thoughts on that?
You're asking a simple question with a very complex answer.
I know. Well, I've been asking you this for years, so first job you were given.
Yeah. Well, I guess about the only inroads were made so far is this new contract, which Mr. Hewitt will explain. But at least we may be able to make a little bit of inroads with Comcast in terms of coverage, but it's not going to happen overnight. But
yeah. Well, what would Mr. Hewig suggest for it to happen overnight for rural areas? Yeah, you have to. Courtney, can you unmute him, please? Uh-oh.
He's unmuted. I'm just going to ask Bill that you please stay unmuted while you're presenting.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep. All right. I'm afraid I have to give you the bad news that I have absolutely no recommendations for you about Wi-Fi and internet. The cable TV license is about cable TV, the provision of cable television services only. It's got nothing to do with internet. It's got nothing to do with Wi-Fi. Your remedy is probably going to be a legislative remedy. Comcast, there's nothing we can do to make Comcast give universal Wi-Fi or universal internet service to residents of this town or any other town anywhere in the United States. The remedy is going to have to be legislative through the state or the federal government. That's all there is to it. There were towns out in the western part of the state that had no cable service and no internet service, and loans were arranged through the federal government about 5 or 6 years ago, and through some state organizations. And money was also appropriated by municipalities, and there were contributions made by cable companies. And those municipalities got internet up to 95%. But that's because they had no cable service and no internet whatsoever before. For a community such as Wellfleet, it's already got some. Those loans, that remedy, the mechanics that were used by Western towns are not available to you. So I have to give you the bad news that there is no answer on the horizon. It's got to be through your state legislators, and that's where you have to turn.
Well, thank you. I like hearing a more official answer to that. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Should we call the question? Does anybody else have any questions about it?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hi.
I see all the hands up now. Go ahead, Ellen.
Revealing my ignorance, Mr. Hewitt, Lower Cape Television, is that like Channel 18? Is that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of your question.
Yeah, it says here, Lower Cape Television was received $4,970 to facilitate a move to a new studio. Is that part of this contract?
Yes.
Can I answer that?
Hold on. So my question was, is that the thing that gives the town like a channel 18?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, are you asking me or Maria?
Whoever can answer it.
Sorry, I'll defer to Mr. Hewitt.
Yes, there's 3 channels. 2 of them come from Lower Cape. And yes, that money that will be used for the studio and the money that is divided on both the annual access grant of 5% gross annual revenues, which comes out to somewhere around $150,000 a year, I think. So that's going to be divided 55 for the town, 45 for Lower Cape for their operating and capital needs. And then there's a capital, well, it's operating needs. And then there's a capital grant as well that will be, the license will provide for the town. And that capital grant will be in the amount of approximately $127,000, $128,000 a year for 10 years. And that capital grant is divided 50-50. So the town gets half and Lower Cape gets half. And with the money that Lower Cape gets from Wellfleet, and all the other towns have the same proportional divisions, they provide the service for 2 channels that you get.
Okay, and those 2 channels have our meetings, the town, the meetings, the regulatory board meetings, select board meetings, and so forth. Those are the channels which show those meetings, correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
Those are different. Sorry to interrupt. Those are 2 different things.
Maria, Mia, can you just quickly?
Can I just tell you where I'm going with this, please?
Yes, please, Ellen, please
I've had serial reports that the scheduling is not met on those stations. And a few people, but there are some people, and we're paying for this, who want, let's say, to watch a select board meeting, will look at the schedule and go there, and it's not on when it says it is. So
I don't know what, I'm not sure to what you're referring. I'm happy to talk about that offline anytime. Channel 18 is specific to each town. So if you go to Channel 18, whatever town you're in, it's going to show that town's personal channel. Lower Cape TV manages Channel 22, which is education, and Channel 99, which is public access or public programming. So the government channel is Channel 18, and I broadcast the most recent select board meetings 3 times a day, 7 a.m., 1 p.m., and 7 p.m., and I have since I started doing this job 2 years ago. So anyone who wants to see that, that's always consistent.
is this Mia?
That's Mia Baumgarten.
Yes, I'm not looking at you. Thank you. Well, I had gotten reports from people who would go and look at the schedule and then go, and it wasn't working. It wasn't on when it said it would. I'm just reporting that.
Okay.
So I don't know that.
Point of order.
I just am not sure that this is relevant to this
Right.
It's
at
not.
all. It's not. I don't think it is.
Well, we're looking at a contract, Mike.
Yes, I know, but the select board meetings are outside of this. I mean, the Wellfleet management of its channel is not in the scope of this contract.
Right.
Well, where money is involved, but in any case, thank you.
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah. So, to anybody watching at home, the contract that's before us, it reduces the density from 20 residential units per square mile or per aerial mile to 15. That means that there are going to be additional residential units that will be able to have service now. I don't think anybody has a good idea as to exactly who might be eligible for service. I think it would be in the best interest of the town if the town staff worked on trying to figure out who might be eligible now and to inform them of it. I know that currently the mechanism in here is that the residents of an area that wasn't served before have to notify Comcast that they would like to have service, and then Comcast will come out and basically do a census, or they'll go out and survey it. I think it would be extremely beneficial to those that currently do not have service if the town figured out some way of informing them that their area is now eligible for service, because otherwise it's going to be very hard to get the word out to them. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I didn't even realize that. Thank you, Ryan, for pointing that out.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the mechanism for that is. I know, and maybe Bill can speak to this a little bit. We talked a little bit about this in the negotiations, and it wasn't really easy information to get.
Yeah, and this is a big win to anybody who's wondering, to lower the density factor. And
yeah, it's probably one of the great improvements of this version of this contract. License.
Probably, through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Probably the best way to do it is for everybody who's not served to ask Comcast if they qualify under the new density requirements, and Comcast will go out and conduct a survey. I think that's probably going to be the best way. You could ask Comcast, I suppose, to conduct a survey down at the end of every road where the current density of 20, or every road where the current density of 20 has resulted in
Denial.
That's right. It goes down to the certain length of the road, and then it stops. And beyond that, the density is less than 20. So there's going to be these roads in town, I assume, or sections of road where there's no cable service provided that may well qualify under the new density of 15 homes per mile. So Comcast could probably provide that information to you too. But I would say alert your residents that there is a new density, and that they should everyone who wants cable and doesn't have it should call Comcast and ask them. Comcast will go out and check and let them know.
And we could certainly put some information out to encourage folks who are interested in getting cable and don't have it now to contact Comcast.
yeah, and maybe in future tax bills as well, send those all out to the residents, because that's the way to get to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, the Wi-Fi thing is just huge right now. So it matters so much to families that are in areas that aren't served, that have kids operating in remote school learning and stuff like that. So, Janet?
So we have a cable advisory committee, and I'm wondering if they can help out disseminate this information and coordinate it, and make suggestions. And this doesn't involve what we're talking about, this license agreement tonight. So I'm kind of point of order and all that, but
Yeah. Well, we can worry about that later. Let's get this motion on the table here.
all right. Okay, I move to approve and sign the Comcast cable television license agreement for a 10-year period, beginning on December 1st, 2020, and ending on November 30th, 2030, and authorize the select board to sign it.
Do I have a
Helen,
second?
second.
Okay, the motion seconded. Roll call vote.
Helen, I.
Janet, aye.
Christina, I.
Brian, aye.
Michael, aye. The motion carries 5-0. Thanks a lot, Bill.
You're
And-
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for negotiating it. It's a major improvement.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you for
So,
writing
we
that.
have our stamps ready so that we've all voted on it, and I
So-
checked with. Yes,
Helen?
Brittany?
Yeah, your stamps we're not ordering them one at a time. Mike needs to come in and give his signatures, and then we'll order them all. So anything you vote on signing tonight, you all need to go in over the holiday and sign them all. You'll have liquor licenses you need to sign and things like that. So you will need to sign until we get your stamps in person.
That's my fault.
That's okay.
My bad.
I forgot. I know Courtney reminded us too, and I still forgot to go and give her my signature. Okay. Sorry, everybody. Gonna have to sign because of me.
So I will sign off then, if that's all on the
Yeah,
cable.
you're all set. Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Mark Washburn, Cable Advisory Committee. Mark, are you on here?
Yes, he's here.
I am here.
Hi, Mark. Would you like to speak basically about why you want to be on this committee and what your background is?
Sure, be happy to. Good evening. I am a 20-year homeowner in Wellfleet. It is my second home. I live about half the year in Sudbury as well. I am a telecom veteran. I have 25 years experience in building cable or fiber optic networks, primarily in New England. And I think I was a CEO of a competitive local exchange company. I've testified before the Department of Public Utilities. I have guest lectured at MIT on telecom. So robust background. I think I have some experience with building networks that maybe can be helpful to the mess we're in the Outer Cape. I think it's actually somewhat criminal that Comcast and Verizon will spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year marketing to me in Sudbury that they want my service, yet they won't provide me service in Wellfleet. So I guess I would like to see if I can help bring broadband to the Outer Cape. This summer, I spent about most of the month of July working on a project on Lieutenant Island where I own a home. And I basically knocked on all 54 doors of everyone that doesn't have broadband on Lieutenant Island and got them to send an email to me saying that they would agree to give Comcast an easement. So that was a major effort, and we have unanimous support out there. And we've provided the details to Comcast, so hopefully they will build that project.
Great. Well, I'll move to appoint Mark Washburn to the Cable Advisory Committee for a one-year term, and I'll also move to put him in charge of getting broadband throughout Wellfleet.
Yeah, that's a thankless.
I move to appoint you. It sounds great.
Okay,
Helen, second.
first motion.
Okay, Janet.
I second.
Yep.
Wait, I need to ask Mark some things.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Helen. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you, Mark. I'm aware of you from Lieutenant Island meetings. Are you aware that we allow people who are not registered voters here to serve on boards and committees? I mean, you can't be elected to something, but you can serve on boards and committees. However, it doesn't matter where you're domiciled. If you're on a board or committee, you have to show up In other words, it's not a seasonal thing. And if you miss 4 meetings in a row, you're off. Are you fully committed to showing up once we get off virtual, right, to being on this committee, which is an important one and could really use your expertise? And thank you so much for offering yourself. But do you understand that when we go off virtual, that you will have to show up, drive here, and show up to those meetings from Sudbury?
I absolutely am aware of that and wouldn't be here if I wouldn't make that commitment.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion. It's been seconded. Roll call vote.
Ellen, I.
Janet, I.
Justina, I.
Ryan, I.
Michael, aye. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you a lot, Mark. We appreciate you coming and lending your expertise to us.
Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving.
You
Thank
too.
you, Mark.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Appointment of Peter Cook to the Bike and Walkways Committee. I'll do the same thing here, Peter, if you're on here. If you'd like to speak about why you want to be on the committee and what your background is.
Hi, sure, Michael. Thank you.
At home. Yep.
So, longtime visitor of Wellfleet, homeowner for the last 15 years here, permanent resident for about the last 4 years. Once I was able to move out here full time, I did. A lot of interest in Wellfleet and in seeing the town do the right thing. I know that there are many ways in which the town can improve. I think one way is by developing the best bicycling and walkway routes it can in town. I mean, it's obviously, as a historic attraction, the town really has a lot to provide, to offer, but we also want to improve quality of life in the town. A lot of issues to consider as various alternatives are compared, and I'd like to help be a part of that with the town. I think I could bring something to the table in working with the others on the committee.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Any questions for Pete? Seeing none from the board, I've got Kathleen. Oh, Justina. I'll go to the board first. Justina, go ahead.
Yeah, Pete, your name's familiar to me from the various sorts of meetings and presentations that have gone on with the bike trail. So would you, I know we've gotten letters from you and things. I think that you have a particular point of view. On the issue.
Question?
Yeah, sorry. It
sorry,
seems to me that you wrote a lot against the proposed bike trail that the state was proposing.
Oh, well, I was part of the group that that tried to voice opposition to what the state was doing. I know there were a lot of people in town who felt that way. I think it's important to investigate other alternatives as well and to determine what the best path is. I personally don't have a pre-selected solution. I think it's important to consider what the town's objectives are in a prioritized, systematic fashion. Take a look at what's available in terms of possible routes, whether that's along the highway as the state proposed or whether it can be taken off highway, which I think a lot of people prefer, and then to work with other government agencies, whether we're talking about DCR, DOT, and others, Cape Cod Commission, potentially the National Seashore, to the extent that they should be involved, or some of our neighboring towns as well. So a lot to consider, a lot of opportunity to do something good with these other agencies.
Yeah, I agree with you. There is a lot to consider. Here's my concern. It's a town committee. It's not a sort of ad hoc citizen committee, and the issues are complicated. And I think a town committee has a responsibility to have a balance, some sort of balance of voices, because the issues are complex. And when passions get inflamed, it gets we all care about things, and it's hard. I'd like to see that committee retain some sort of objectivity, and so that's my concern tonight. And I'd like to see. Certainly, your background's very impressive, but I think that it would be nice to retain some sort of balance on that committee, given that it is a town committee.
Can I just speak for a second? I met with the citizens for what was it called? Citizen for a Sensible Bike Path, and I met with Peter a couple times, and I think it's a little unfair to sort of pigeonhole him in such a way as not being able to be objective. I think he came across to me as somebody who was very systematic in his thinking about, how things could be proceed, and it's evident with the amount of signatures that were received on that petition, as well as the town meeting vote of residents, where the town, I think, is on the subject of the bike trail and the highway. And I don't think anything about that petition had anything particularly radical. I mean, it essentially was calling for relooking at the bike trail and finding the most sensible solution. So I think with somebody with the background in engineering, project management, problem solving, I didn't know this about Peter until I got this application. It seems like he's exactly the type of person that we would want in here contributing. So that's my 2 cents on the subject. I've had cordial meetings with Peter, so I do have a sense of how he operates personally a little bit, and I think he would be a good addition to the bike and walkways, which actually I think needs a little bit of a organizing, around stuff. So. And meeting more. So I'm not sure about that, but I'm not going to get involved on that level. But I would welcome Peter onto that committee and be happy to do so. Kathleen. Oh, Helen, sorry, you had your hand up. Go ahead, Helen. Sorry, Kathleen.
Yeah, so I think I'm the only board member that's actually been to Bike and Walkways committee meetings. Yes, they are a bit undone. They haven't met recently. They met regularly and very carefully. In other words, I went to those meetings and there was interest in working on what they're charged to work on, but I didn't find them to have access to grind. I found them concerned with a situation which needed a lot of attention. And I also found them and other people who I spent quite a lot of time learning things from and speaking with about it to inform myself, to be temperate about it. Peter Cook, I've had a number of exchanges with and been at many meetings with him. And I'm saying this in part to reassure Justina, because Justina, you have a really good point. Having people with access to grind, which is very different than people wanting to work on something passionately. Having an axe to grind means you have this kind of limited view of it and you stick to it, and it can be very destructive on a committee, right? I really agree with that. Peter Cook is not like that at all, in my experience, and he is one of those rare opportunities where he's moved here, he's committed to here, and he wants to do public service. He was there at the polls. And I think he would be fair-minded and careful on this committee, and he'd give it the time. So I'm very appreciative that he's applied. I felt that his correspondence about it to us was very well informed. And his concerns come out of the degree of information that he's taken in. And his background supports his ability to do that in depth. So I'm very glad he's applied. Thank you.
Okay, Kathleen? Bacon?
I think I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted, yeah. Sorry about that, Kathleen.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me. I've known Pete and his family for a very long time now, but I'm going to speak against this appointment. I think from the very beginning of the rail trail extension, Mr. Cook has been a very vocal and solid opposition to the rail trail. He was the primary driving force behind the petitioned article. There were petitions in the liquor store. There were petitions at the marketplace. We were asked to take a petition at the Well restaurant. Signatures were taken on those petitions, some of which were just vacationers. We really could never validate the signatures. But having said that, Mr. Cook's family is a property owner abutting the project of the rail trail. So I would question the impartiality and the objectivity of him serving on this committee. It's important for the town to have an impartial committee, to be open-minded for all the alternatives. And I hope there are more alternatives out there. But I feel that you're really stacking this committee, Mr. Chair, with opposition to the DCR extension. Thank you.
I'll give you a chance to reply to that, Peter, if you'd like. Otherwise, we can take a vote.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the chance to hear those concerns. As far as abutting the rail trail, my sister does have property on Oriole Lane, which I know is Oriole Lane is at one end of the proposed parking, the DCR parking lot. So she is on Oriole Lane, and that is at one end of that Oriole Lane is at one end of the parking lot. So that's true. And if that would be a concern, then I would withdraw the application. But that is not something that's motivated my interest in serving on a town committee. I mean, I think it's important. I think the town has a great opportunity to do the right thing, regarding continuation of the rail trail, or at least a bikeway from the rail trail through Wellfleet to the betterment of Wellfleet. I think it's something that's important for the town to do. I'm happy to be part of it if I can, and to bring whatever contribution I can. I think that the town's opportunity was almost lost because the state was coming through with something that many townspeople had great reservation about. Now that the state has paused that and given the town an opportunity to consider alternatives, I think it's important that the town take that opportunity, and that we work as team members with the state and with others, really to come up with what the best solutions are out here for a bikeway that really increases the quality of life in Wellfleet.
Thank you. I would just also say that, people are entitled to their opinions on things, to serve on a committee. And what matters is that someone's, willing to look at things objectively. And I think that Peter has done that in the past. So I really don't have any concern that he's got an axe to grind. And I think, collecting signatures at various locations is the way petitions are done. I mean, that's how you get signatures, is by asking people to sign things. So I'm not sure what the issue is on that subject. But besides that, the point, I think that, as things happen on the bike committee, they've had turnover, people have left, and I think Peter would make a positive contribution. That's all I'll say. I think Janet and Justina both have their hand up also. Go ahead.
Kathleen raised a really good point. I forgot that your sister owned land abutting the present DCR suggested parking lot. So you would have to recuse yourself every time that came up, because there is a financial effect within a family. So not only do you recuse yourself, but you'd actually have to leave the room if you were doing that. So that's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
And I will say that when the DCR first came with their plan, and again, this goes back quite a long way. I did as chair allow a lot of people with one. I mean, the committee was stacked 2 and 3 years ago. And I do feel that it's still kind of stacked. I know a number of people have kind of dropped off and there's new people. So I totally agree with Kathleen, and that we need committees that are well-rounded. But I do think you have to understand, Helen's got her hand up again, but that you would have to recuse yourself when they talk about the bike lane and the bike trail in that area. Thank you.
Justina?
Mike? Sorry.
Helen?
Actually, legally, nobody that's a special municipal employee appointed either by the moderator or by the select board has to recuse. They can come to us, do a disclosure, and ask if they can act on the particular matter. We've done these before, and then we get to talk about it and think about it. I'm going to say this again. I'm the only board member who's been to these meetings. I did not find them stacked with people with attitude. I found them to be, there were participants who had been to way more meetings than a good number of us have been to on the subject, and had a huge amount of information about it. And because of that information, not for some knee-jerk, again, using the phrase axe grinding attitude, they were concerned about it. And I've heard Peter Cook say basically what the petition asked for and what, in fact, this board is asking for, which is to have the process made more coordinated with all the parties that are involved. And we're pending, we have a meeting pending. We voted to have a meeting, and we're waiting to have a date so that we can meet with the 2 agencies and the park and the Bike and Walkways Committee. And I don't find that Peter Cook makes up his mind about anything all by himself. He's not solipsistic. He does not have an axe to grind. He's just informed and ready to serve on this committee, which, by the way, will have a life other than just dealing with this one issue, which we all would like to get off the table and settled. And we're on the way to doing that. Thank you.
Justina?
Yeah, Peter, I'm encouraged by the good things I've heard about you tonight. And I do see you with a background in engineering, and the engineers I've known don't run around with pitchforks. But I am a little scarred by a meeting that I attended, and this was not to the Bike and Walkways Committee at all. But there was a meeting, and people who were very upset about the bike trail, and there were some very well-intentioned young professionals, transportation analysts and so forth from the state who had come all the way down to listen to Wellfleet, and they got screamed at for a long period of time. And I was embarrassed. I wish now that I had stood up and said that we should lower, perhaps make the level of discourse more friendly and exchange the same amount of information in a friendlier manner. And I hope not to have Wellfleet have a meeting like that again. So that's, I think, my fear is that, and this isn't really pertain to your candidacy tonight, but I'd like not to have a committee end up being caught, involved in that kind of discourse again, because we have to work with different bodies and agencies and exchange information and work it with a process and so forth. Then we may not always agree, but these were well-intentioned, well-trained young people who gave up their evening to come down to Wellfleet and got screamed at and then had to go home. And it shouldn't have happened. So our town's better than that. So that's my only point. On a personal note, having lived through that meeting, and I wish I'd handled it differently.
Point of order, Justina. I don't see that that's relevant unless you're saying that Peter Cook was involved.
I want him to know my experience of where I'm coming from, that even if he has strong ideas about the issues, I hope he will be a force for civility.
Okay, so Justine, if I can respond, I share your interest in keeping civility central to these discussions. And I mean, there will be a lot to consider and a lot of people and a lot of organizations involved in some of these complex decisions. And so civility is, of course, paramount.
Thank you, Pete. That means a lot to me.
Okay, can we call the question?
Yes.
Okay. You want to do it, Ryan?
I move to appoint Peter Cook to the Bike and Walkways Committee to fill a term ending June 30th, 2020, or 2022.
Helen, second.
Roll call vote.
Helen, aye.
Janet, aye.
Justina, aye.
Ryan, aye.
Michael, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you all.
Okay. Town administrator, appointment of planning board member to 95 Lawrence Road Housing Task Force. Olga?
I'm here.
Hi, would you like to just give a quick...
Well, I understand that I am the nominee after the other nomination withdrew. I feel very passionate about this project. I've been a affordable housing advocate for many years. I've had my own AADU for more than 15 years now. And I have a background in architecture and construction. And I've even been a housing inspector when work was hard to find. Worked for the city of Boston in that capacity. I've been on the historical commission, so I think I can assure that I will make that the project will fit in with the look of Wellfleet. I don't know what I'm the kind of person that pays attention to detail to the point of maybe annoying people, but I think that will be very important as the project goes on. And I really want it to succeed, but I want to be critical too at the same time and make sure it's a good project.
Okay. Well, Janet, you got your hand up?
So I've known Olga quite a while, I think since you first moved here, and she has been on housing committees, and we've been on that together, and I know she's passionate about this, and I think she will be great.
Okay. Can we call the question on this?
Yes, I move to appoint Olga Khan to the, as the planning board member to the 95 Lawrence Road Housing Task Force.
Second?
Yeah.
Roll call vote.
Helen, I.
Janet, I.
Christina, I.
Brian, aye.
Michael, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Olga, for serving the town.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I am going to be recusing myself from the next item if you're talking about the Wellfleet Conservation.
Sure. I actually was hoping, I just realized that Paul Fowler's on here, and I know he wanted to introduce himself to the town and say hi, and I don't want to keep him on the meeting if he's got better things to do with his time right now. So I just noticed him on there, and I'd just like to introduce him to the town, our new building inspector, Paul Fowler.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to introduce myself and to also meet the members of the board. If there's any questions you have for me, feel free to ask. I'm proud to be a member of the Wellfleet team here, and everyone's been very cordial and welcoming you to town. So again, I'm happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Good luck.
Thank you. It's been a busy few weeks here. There was a kind of a backlog of permits there, so we were able to get most of those out and issued, and I'm sure the contractors and homeowners are all very happy to get those. I look forward to keep moving forward and trying to keep the building department current and the workflow smooth.
Okay. Well, thank you, and good luck to you. I'm sure you'll need it. No, I'm just kidding.
Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate you coming on the meeting and introducing yourself to the town and the people who watch these meetings. More so at home, I think, than are on here. So welcome our new building inspector.
Thank you.
Okay, now on to the next one. Janet, you're going to recuse yourself.
I'm going to recuse myself, yes.
Okay.
Mike, before Janet recuses, Janet, I want to say how deeply wonderful it is that you are donating this land, that you're giving this land, however you're doing it, transferring this land, there we go, to the Conservation Trust and protecting it. I take my hat off to you. Thank you. On behalf of the creatures.
Yeah, and nature. So if you really want to appreciate me doing this, let's just have a short discussion and move on.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
I don't know, Janet. I don't know.
Helen's gonna drag it out.
Okay. So anyhow, I'm gonna take a very short break. So if you have a question, just yell a little bit and I'll hear you.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Okay. Denny.
No.
Yep, I'm here.
What?
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Denny.
Howdy.
You want to speak to this at all?
Sure. Just briefly, and I'm certainly happy to answer questions. A conservation restriction is basically a contract between a qualified conservation organization and the landowner. And Janet will continue to be the landowner. She has not transferred anything to us except for some certain rights that are explained in the CR. There are a whole bunch of things you're allowed to do and things that you're not allowed to do. So, and we monitor the property over the years. We definitely inspect it every year and get the owner of the property involved. So it's a conservation technique rather than transfer of ownership. So, and I think in my package there, I described some of the benefits of this in terms of preserving nature and habitat and all that. And so I know several of you have been through a conservation restriction before, but if you have any questions, I'll just stop there and I can talk more if you want.
I have a quick question. Is this a permanent deed restriction?
Yes, it is.
So it carries It's
Perpetuity.
Ingrid. Okay, I was just curious.
Yep. No, and it's registered at the Registry of Deeds. And so anybody who comes along as a subsequent owner of that property is aware of the conservation restriction. And if their attorney's good, they'll discover it on inspecting the property. And we will be, and it will go on. We will inform new owners when we know of them.
Okay, Ryan.
So because I'm new, why does this have to come before the select board for approval?
Because it's a select board policy that was adopted back in, I can't remember the exact year, maybe 1987. And it is a requirement of the state that you sign off on this because this has to go to the Secretary of Energy and Environment. And so they want to know that the town is on board.
Okay. So, I kind of just view it as a transaction between two private parties. So.
I think, though, the difference is here, I believe there's some tax benefits to transferring land, to giving the land to a trust.
Yeah, it will be valued at a lower valuation.
Right. So I think that the town's involvements on that level is that, it becomes conservation land. Essentially, but it's still retained ownership. So your nitrogen loading capabilities, your septic ability on your land is still tied to that land, I think. Right, Denny?
Depends on how the CR is written. This one is written so that the land that is in Janet's current lot, this CR is on top of two pieces of property, but the CR on top of the lot that she has already, where her house is, that will not change. But the accounting of the septic and all that sort of stuff is not available for the other lot that we're dealing on.
Right. So the one lot will remain unchanged with their
yeah, that's right. Yep.
Potential is okay. But
Ryan, or if I can just, for Ryan's sake, it's not a reduction in the valuation, it's a reduction in the tax rate. Nitpicks.
Okay. Can we have a motion?
Yeah, Mike, can I say one thing?
Oh, sure. You absolutely can.
To tag on to your point, yeah, we lose some tax dollars, but in return, if the Conservation Trust in it, whatever reincarnation it's in at that point, is functioning right, we get enforcement and scrutiny and attentiveness to this land being protected. Okay? And that's particularly important because this isn't within the Conservation Commission's resource, really. You see what I mean? It's not, within 100 feet of wet land, wet water. Okay? So that's what we get in exchange, and that's going to become increasingly important. Thank you.
Well, I will just say this one thing, and this is not, a for or against, but it does also have the consequence of reducing potential development in town. And I'm not saying this as positive or negative, but that's also one of the impacts that putting land into conservation has. So, for what it's worth, it's something. Can we call a question?
Yeah.
I move to approve the conservation restriction on the land of 66 Old Kings Highway as recommended by the Wellfleet Conservation Trust.
Helen, second.
Roll call vote.
Helen, aye.
Christina, aye.
Ryan, aye.
Michael, aye. The motion carries 4-0 with one abstain.
Who's going to yell for Janet?
She's recused.
Recuse. When I talk to the ethics, the lawyer of the day, they use the word interchangeably. They tell you abstain is recuse. So,
Well, I've never heard that, but no, I was just saying, who's going to yell for Janet to come back? Janet!
Aye.
There she is.
She's there.
All right. Well, thank you. I know Courtney has got it arranged for you guys to sign the one piece of paper, and then when we're all done, we'll file the completed CR with the town.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. And on to next order of business is actually the licenses, renewal of annual liquor license for annual liquor licenses. Now, do you guys want to take these all at once? Can we do that?
Can I do
I
that?
think unless somebody has to recuse themselves, we could take them all at once.
Does anyone need to?
I'm up for that. Can I move it? No.
No recusals?
No.
Okay. So
I move to approve the renewal of, oh, sorry. Do you want a motion?
Yeah.
You're breaking up.
Okay. I move, am I breaking up now?
No.
Ah, Jesus. Janet, you move it. Sorry. If I'm breaking up, you move it, please.
All right, okay. I move to approve the renewal of the annual liquor licenses as presented in the packet and recommended by the principal clerk.
Second.
Okay. And do we have to name them?
We don't have to, the way it's written, presented in the packet. But if you want me to name mine.
You're right. We don't have to. Okay. Roll call vote.
Janet, aye. I don't know where Helen went.
Justina, aye.
Helen, aye. I said.
Oh, Helen's aye. Okay.
Michael, aye. The motion carries 5-0. Okay, thank you. Okay, town administrator update on the fuel tanks of the marina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The subject of the fuel tanks came up. I think it was our last select board meeting. In the meantime, Will Sullivan and Mike Travato and I talked to the gentleman from GEI, the engineering firm that's doing the design work. They're at 30% design for the project. And I have Will Sullivan with us today. Will, are you on here? So that Will can just sort of walk you through what the status of that project is, what it was that the board approved for the contract with GEI, and just sort of where we are with the project. Can I, if I may, Mr. Chairman, if I can hand it over to Will.
Sure, Will, go ahead.
Sure. We're currently working on the design phase of the project. We are approximately in the 30 percentile range of that project, which has been slightly sidetracked by the fast-moving dredging project. So it has had to take a back seat for a little bit to that. But we expect that'll move forward and progress at a greater rate following this piggyback dredging that you'll all be involved with shortly. Currently, we are seeking out sizes of the tanks and status of them, of the above ground fuel tanks to put in. Northern Town also needs the ability to fuel vehicles and things like that. We'd like to offer with the tank to be a greater benefit to the entire town. That's currently where we're at with the tank. Also, like to get some rankings done of what the tank would possibly look like for the select board. The engineer has agreed that he could do that. Going forward, that'll take him a little bit of time, holidays and such. So that could be in the next few weeks to a month to get that done, barring your schedule. Currently, we are contracted to do that with GEI through them to explore what we currently in the ground and removal of those tanks and the future of the new tanks going with that. And we would also be with them to hopefully do the construction and place those tanks. That's why we want to get the rings done for that. Going forward, the town police department that we found out is looking for approximately 15,000 gallons a year, 14,000 gallons a year. So that's why the size of it has come into question and the ability to do that. So we have been reaching out to the other departments. We are in that match now to look forward with the fire department, conservation, things like that, and the health department, Hillary, basically, to move forward with that.
Okay, Helen. You're muted, Helen. You're muted.
I was having to chase my cats and you didn't need to hear me yelling at them. I apologize. 2 questions through you, Mike, to Maria and or Will, either one. Currently, those tanks that are in the ground now are insured, and we became aware of this a couple years ago, the need to replace them when the insurance company was sort of blinking a red light at us, and then we were given a bit of extension. Is the insurance on these tanks and anything that can happen with them going to carry through until they are out of the ground and removed? At what point does the insurance cut off? That's my first question. And my second question is, at our last exchange about these tanks, apparently in the works, it was unclear to me whether it was in the contract or not. They were also going to give us plans, an option of underground tanks. And I'm hoping that that was corrected because town meeting didn't appropriate for that. Ryan read out the town meeting article. It's just for above ground tanks. And the board had decided previously that it was going to be above ground. So I'm hoping that was corrected and we didn't have to pay the money for doing underground tank plans. So my first question is about the insurance, and my second question is, was that corrected? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Go ahead.
So I will look into the question of at what point does our insurance coverage stop covering the current tanks. I can look into that. I don't think because of the type of tanks you have that you're going to have future monitoring of them. But let me find that out. Now, in terms of the contract with GEI that the select board approved, it included in there a task to review a review of underground tank issues, so that at some point in September 2019, when the board approved that contract, it included actually looking at an underground option, even though your town meeting article called specifically for an above ground option. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, Mike, my impression was that when we discussed it, we said that shouldn't be in there during that meeting.
Well, Helen,
in other words,
you have to go through the minutes and look, but the contract that we signed says that. So
I know, but it could have been taken out. Our signature, wasn't it conditioned on that? Didn't we determine that we wouldn't sign it unless that was taken out?
That was before my time, I believe. Janet might know.
No. What we just did at a recent meeting with all of us.
Oh, no, that's already in motion.
Yeah.
The engineering to be looked at.
Yeah.
I don't think, we didn't take a vote on that.
If I may say this, if that's acceptable.
Yes, please.
The contracted rate for is signed into contract for the design of the tanks. So that is already set into place with that contract.
And when did we sign?
That was, I can't remember the exact signature. It was with Dan and Mike.
But it was not this year.
I think it would have been about a year ago or so.
Yeah, September 2019 is the contract date.
Okay. And yeah, so, okay, September 2019. And the vote at town meeting was the previous spring, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the vote.
Yeah, so that contract, I didn't catch it. I read it. I read everything. I didn't catch it.
Well, it doesn't matter because the engineering's being done. I mean, maybe it matters to some degree, but the engineering's being done doesn't mean we're going to put them in the ground. It's being done for both.
No, but we should pay for the engineering to be done if it wasn't, we can't use an appropriation like that. And, it does cost money to pay people, to do engineering plans and to spend time on it. And so anyway, I've had both my questions answered, or one of them is going to be answered, when those tanks are coming out of the ground, they're being taken away. If there's any kind of spill, does insurance still cover it, in that process? Not for monitoring through you, Mike, to Maria, but simply if there's a problem, are we insured for that during the removal?
Oh, we would be for sure. I would let it go without making sure that we were covered for anything that could happen during the physical process of removing those tanks.
They were.
Sure, and I've dealt with a number of tank removal projects over my time. In terms of the work to be done by GEI, my discussion with them and Will and Mike a few days ago was concentrate on the above ground focus of this, because it's my thought that since your town meeting article said above ground, if you're going to change it, I think it needs to go back. So what we would like to do, because all of the physical location of where the tank will or will not go is, there are some options there. So what we would like to do is to get you some renderings so that you can actually see what it would look like visually with the tank in, one, two, or three possible locations, so that you have something to react to before we go further on into, a more advanced stage of engineering. That make sense?
Mike, through you, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I think any decision about locating it, and some locations have been discussed on town-owned property as it exists now, it should be the most convenient for use of the tanks, and also the most environmentally safe, if that's possible. And that, how it looks, well, it's a working place down there. It's not, there's the beautiful water and the beautiful view, but the environmental, decision in relation to the environment in terms of locating them, which is part of why it's above ground, and efficiency for use of them really has to come first. I mean, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to look, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. But having some drawings to sort of physically see how it would look and how it would relate to the users and the water and those kind of things makes it easier to sort of wrap your head around how things are in relationship to other things. So For that reason, we'd like to bring the renderings to you when we have them, to get your reaction before we do the final engineering and pick a spot.
Also, I know that, I guess I don't know that above ground tanks are necessarily in this day and age more environmentally friendly or less prone to problems, especially with the amount of oversight. I mean, there's a reason why gas stations don't have their tanks above ground,
Right. Right. There are some distinct advantages to below ground too, and the convault tanks and the sophistication of the monitoring is, they're pressure tested all the time. You would know if you had any indication of any issues whatsoever with those tanks far in advance of it becoming an environmental concern.
All right. And a tornado, which we've been having tornado warnings on Cape Cod. If something hit an above ground tank, like what hit in Harwich a couple of years ago, above ground tank becomes a liability compared to an in-ground tank. So it's not clear and cut and dry that one is definitely superior to the other. I mean, I certainly don't know.
Mike, this was gone into, and I agree with you. It's not unreasonable for newer members of the board to, but this was gone into, and all these things were brought up when we were discussing underground versus above ground. I'd like to remind everybody that underground on the pier is practically, if not completely, in the water. And that was one issue. The other thing, Maria, it's very interesting because this came up with the fuel tanks for the Cumberland Farms renovation. And we got granular information about all the different ways you can monitor and the backups for that monitoring for those underground fuel tanks, which are also, by the way, not that far from the water. And the problem is that those monitoring systems, which you can't see what they're monitoring because it's under the ground, can fail. And we got quite a lot of information about that. So that was interesting to me. I didn't know about it. We certainly looked at it closely. And you're right, Mike, there are pros and cons for both, but we decided on above ground. We've got the appropriation for town meeting, and this really needs to have happened already. And I just hope that, the other reason gas stations have them underground is because of real estate. Let's not forget that. It's because they need all that area to drive over. And that was also brought up when we discussed it, if I remember that correctly. Maybe I don't, but I think I do. That, okay, parking spaces, but we already have this kind of fenced in area there, right? Isn't that where the fuel tanks are now? Through you to Will?
Yeah.
What is that fence?
Yeah, the metal fenced in area over by the fueling dock in the parking lot below the grass where they currently are.
Could you hear that?
Yes.
Any of you hear that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I can repeat myself for you, Helen. That's currently where they are. It kind of go over towards the L pier in front of Max.
Yeah.
Metal fences. That's currently below ground.
No, let's just clarify this because it keeps being brought up that this is somehow a dangerous situation currently, or that it is in imminent danger of failing right now. And it's my understanding that that's not the case. It's been looked at and it's not a dangerous situation currently. Can we, Will, can you?
Can you talk a little bit about the monitoring, Will? How those are monitored now?
Yeah. So what we currently have is a Vita-Root monitoring system, which monitors several places of the tanks, inside the tanks, outside the tanks, and an initial space between the double-walled tanks that we do have. So if any of those fluid pressures changes, That system gives us a diagnostic every single day of that, all of those different sensors, even the tanks in the pump chamber, that it's also in there. So let's say any rainwater gets in on top of where the pump chamber is, with just the slightest bit of that, it will let us know and say an alarm to us that that is happening. Also with that, we also do have that system is monitored by an independent company every year, as well as like the vapor recovery system. So it's all being monitored and then checked by a company. Also, we have to supply the findings to the state every year to renew this as well. And that's aside on the fire marshal and that aspects of things.
So my question to you was pertaining to the integrity of the tanks themselves. Has that's been looked into and determined that it's in a certain condition? Can you speak to the condition that they're in right now?
Yes, they're in a good standing and a good working order. The problem that we are looking at replacing is because we know that they don't last forever. So we want to be ahead of that curve, and we want to them, but they have been looked at. They're visually inspected and monitored for that. And they are in good standing and good working at this point in time. And
sorry, Will, are they considered past their useful life right now?
I believe we're coming up on that.
Okay.
Mike?
Yes, Helen.
All I know is that 2 years ago, the insurance company, maybe they're in cahoots with the people that manufacture fuel tanks, I doubt it, said that we had to replace them. And we have to do it before they fail because of where they are. The stakes are too high. So, Will, I'm reassured by everything you've said, but it is overdue. I mean, the insurance company, according to Dan Hort at the time, because we gave it close scrutiny, said, okay, we'll give you another year. Well, this is longer than that. So I'm very glad that it's being worked on. And I hope we see those drawings soon so that we can approve them and this can move ahead and happen before our next season when you guys are all busy up the yazoo. I mean, you're very busy, okay? That's part of my concern, that this happens before the next summer season. Thank you.
That is a goal that was expressed to GEI. And that is,
can't hear you.
Sorry, that is the goal that we have with GEI, and that was the goal of the entire project, was to get these in place before the next season.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Ryan, you got a question?
I don't have a question. I just would like to see the fuel tanks put in place as soon as possible. That it is something that the citizenry of the town has already approved and paid for. And we really need to put it in to respect the votes at town meeting. Thank you.
Okay. On to the next topic here. Thank you, Will.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you very much. Great. Thanks.
Okay. So review, discuss, and approve a letter of support in support of an expanded residential tax exemption. Ryan, do you want to just make the motion and then we
so this isn't really a letter. What it is it's a petition to the general court. I talked to I've been in touch with Julian Sears' office and Sarah Peak's office, and Schroed just adopted or is in the process of adopting it now. But the basically how it works is that it's a petition to the general court, which means that if it's approved tonight, then it would get inserted into the warrant for town meeting to approve. And then from town meeting, it would go on to the legislator and Sarah Peak and Julian Sear would file the bill to enact it. So I can make the motion now if you want the motion first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's make the motion first.
Okay. I move to insert and support expanding residential property exemption home rule petition in the 2021 annual town meeting warrant and direct the town administrator to draft the article.
Second, Helen.
Okay. Discussion?
Mike?
Helen?
So, Ryan, this is good. We need to encourage housing in every way we can. However, two things. As you probably all have clear in your heads at this point, if we don't get tax dollars from one way, they have to be gotten from another way. So the numbers I would like to see to go with this when it comes to town meeting, and it would have been good to have them tonight, no fault. You gave us a lot of material and I really appreciate it, is what tax burden that would put on the rest of us. This comes up when we do the exemption. In other words, it shifts the responsibility for putting those dollars together on other people, because we always need to have a certain amount. If you give one person an exemption, other people have to cover that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is more concerning over the long haul, which is, and this has been a mess with affordable accessory dwellings. Who is going to archive and be in charge of and on top of knowing the continuity of this if somebody applies for this exemption and they have a year-round rental? That has to be checked every year, because they could just decide not to do it, and the town has to be on top of that, as they have had to be with affordable accessory dwellings, units. And that hasn't gone as well as it might have with those, and it might not go as well as it might have with these. So locally, I'm all for taking this to town meeting and voting to approve it and letting the people know about it and sending it to the legislature and having it be possible. I think it's good. But we need to think very carefully about how it's going to be managed and also what the numbers are. So thank you for putting it together. I want to vote for it tonight, but we really need to know these things, and we may change our minds about it.
So
because of that.
If I may, we don't know how many year-round rentals would qualify, because it would have to be, they have to be in residence for the year. So it can't be one that's, where they're there for 8 months and then rent the house out in the summer for a higher rate. It has to be a true year-round rental. In terms of implementation, I think Provincetown is the best one to look at. They've had this in place for the longest. And Truro, as I said, Truro is in the process of getting it put in place. Yeah, Provincetown has been doing this for a little while now. And if, we should really look at their model as to how to structure it.
The other thing, just to speak to Helen's concern about the issues revolving around the AADU compliance and filing, is the complexity of that program, that bylaw, but also the requirements set forth by the rates that are, I believe derive from HUD to set the rents every year. And it's sort of like the time when you register it has to be a specific date, and your leases don't necessarily line up with that. So you have to produce a lease, and it's been a problem from the beginning. Whereas when you take the affordable aspect out of that compliance mechanism, you can just certify it on any date, so long as that lease is in effect for a full year, right? So it's much less complicated than the AADU, and that's one of the thing where like ADUs, one of the reasons why they're being taken up in so many towns where they're just having ADUs is to reduce that amount of complexity in complying with the restrictions on that. So, Janet?
So we shouldn't mix them up, because each of these ADUs, AADUs, and this residential exemption all have different advantages. And there are state regulations. So let's just not mix them up tonight. I agree with Helen, and probably everybody, that we need more information. I'd like to hear, when we do the residential tax exemption, we get numbers from Nancy Vale, our assessor. So what we could do tonight is to further this along, to move it along, approve it, because it's not going to happen until town meeting anyhow, which gives us plenty of time, and just to get people talking about it so that they're aware of it. And we do need to find out how many people are eligible for this and how it's going to be regulated. So I would like to support this, and whether we vote on it or not, the exact same thing, but we just need more information, more facts.
Yeah, I think we can get that
meeting,
Yeah, we can definitely get that in the future, but I can tell you right now, there's not that many year-round rentals, so it's not going to be that big of a shift. There's really, I mean, we have a severe shortage of year-round rentals. So any incentivizing for people to do that, this is not enough of an incentive for people to convert a seasonal rental to a year-round rental. It's the money. What I'm saying, I guess, is that there's no way that this tax reduction is enough to offset the amount of money that you would make on a seasonal rental just to convert it. So it's an incentive. It helps, but like realistically, this isn't going to all of a sudden make like 50 year-round rentals or something like that. And I can tell you right now, because I have a lot of friends who've been looking for year-round rentals, that they're few and far between. And I've had my own issues finding places to live in this town. So we can get the numbers, but I'm sure that they're not going to be big. There's not a lot of year-round rentals in town. And those people who are doing that, who are those landlords that are doing that are taking their properties and renting them year-round rather than trying to maximize the income on that, I think rightfully deserve some tax relief.
Yeah,
for doing so in our current climate. So I'd like to just call the question. Justina, do you have something?
Yeah, just real quick to what Helen said about the tax. The split residential is revenue neutral by definition. So the allowing the year-round rental to be classified as a residential to get the exemption would I assume be factored into that general equation. It would not cause a tax liability. There's also only a small handful of them. So I think we're asking good analytic questions, but we're slicing and dicing on probably a very small handful of rentals in town. I think Ryan's motion is great, and it's more of a symbolic importance than anything else. And certainly the questions deserve answering, but I'm prepared to support Ryan's motion.
Okay, so we have motion's been made and it's been seconded. So let's take a roll call vote.
I'm Helen, I.
Janet, I.
Christina, aye.
Ryan, aye.
Michael, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, Ryan, for bringing that forward.
Thank you, Ryan, for doing all this work.
Okay, discussion of the status of H746, an act relative to shellfish. The Cutler bill, Helen, you put this on here. Can you give us a brief synopsis of it? Because we're getting late.
Well, I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to say that we had news that it had gone out of one committee, it was going to another. And did you all read Sarah Peak's email about this? Yes. Okay. So I also, I reread the letter that we drafted and sent to the first committee. Okay. It's still good if we needed to send something next year, or if this ever came up again, the language would still be good. We just address it to another group, but it was taken care of, so we can just move on. But I'm glad that you were all brought up to date about it, because it did move out of one committee. And we need
Helen,
to keep
does it mean that it's essentially dead?
Yes. Well, if you read Sarah's email, it is for now, but we mustn't pretend it's gone away, because when I went to the Green Advisory meeting the other day, which I reported last time, on a agenda item that had nothing to do with while I was there, somebody that was on that advisory board brought it up and said, yeah, we really need to get, the shellfishing regulations or law, or whatever he said, consistent throughout the state. And to me, that signaled that he wasn't aware that we have consistency because of the DMF regulations and also Mass General Law. In other words, there is an overarching consistent thing that applies to the whole state. And then localities, municipalities get to tweak it so it's appropriate, like we do with zoning bylaws and Board of Health regulations and so forth. And he didn't seem to know that. He seemed to think that this bill was something that would encourage it. So we shouldn't think it's dead. We should just think it's sleeping, and we hope it's going to stay that way. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay. On to the next thing. We've got select board reports. Anybody got one?
Yep, I've got a very quick one.
Cool.
I actually just want to thank all the committees and departments that are emailing us their minutes. It's been great, and it's very much appreciated. And I want to give a report on select board reports. So when I first suggested that we have this section that if selectmen have been going to other meetings, that they would say what they've learned or what they've done, I don't think it's necessary to just say what meeting you went to. I mean, it's really not a report. So it would just simplify things a little more. If you have something to actually report about it, good, but otherwise it doesn't matter to me. Know what I mean,
I
Ryan?
might do that anyway, but you can just not listen. That's okay. No offense.
Okay, we got any more select board reports?
I didn't go to any other meetings except for the Harbor Conference. Thank you.
I can report that pandemic fatigue is setting in all across America. That's my report. Yeah.
Setting in my living room.
Yeah.
Setting in with my cats.
Can we start drinking wine at these meetings?
No.
We're not.
Okay. Oh, is that what's going on in that coffee mug? Okay. Town administrator's report.
Wait, we have, yeah. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I can wait.
No, mine was future discussion. So go ahead. Future agenda.
Wait, where's Maria? She doesn't.
She's right here.
What?
Right here.
I'm here.
Administrator's report.
So you don't
I'm
have.
here.
Any reports, any questions?
So looking through, it looks like the only thing that's in my report that has not yet been mentioned is that the town has been awarded a $2.5 million MassWorks grant to help pay for the water system upgrade that was approved at town meeting. And Mike Travato can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 3.8 million was the full nut for that. The 2.5 million there were only a few projects in Massachusetts, maybe 5 or 6, and those were to big towns, or 5 or 6 towns. Boston got a couple that were bigger than this one. So well done on the part of staff and the gentleman from the water board that worked on this, because it's a $2.5 million for Wellfleet, and this is Wellfleet's first award of one of these projects. The grants for one of these projects is work well done. So that's all I have that hasn't already been said.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yep.
Yeah, so I just want to thank Maria for responding to a request that was made a few weeks ago, like maybe 2 months ago or something, or maybe a month and a half ago, where you were asked to just let us know between meetings, not just with these reports that we get for the meeting, where we can ask you questions and stuff, but to email us about events. I think it came up first because of the town accountant, not being rehired, then of his probationary year. And I want to really thank you, because you have been doing that, and it is so helpful, and it gives a sense of things happening between the times that we meet formally like this. So thank you very much for stepping up to the plate with that.
My pleasure, and always available to talk to individuals on the board about specific things. I know Ryan and I talked a couple of times this week about some stuff. I'm always available, as long as we don't hit quorum status or go over things, that we're, no decisions are being made outside the meeting, but always available to talk. It's a kind of a weird time to be your town administrator, because I don't get to see you. So whatever I can do, if there's inquiries that you have, let me know.
Yeah, well, I was talking about the report emails we all get at the same time as they're happening.
Sure.
And town administrators are traditionally accessible by any one of us one-on-one. And, I typically write down questions and, call up with questions if necessary between meetings, before meetings. Anyway, thank you.
My pleasure. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Yeah, I did notice one thing on here, personnel matters, and it's probably just an oversight, but that there's going to be a position open in the administrative office, because Courtney is going to be sadly leaving.
It's correct, and wasn't it? I don't think it. I'm thinking timing wise, I just didn't put it in there.
Yeah, maybe.
Good. Yes, Courtney's going to be leaving. Going to be working with different staff members to cover her responsibilities. We're going to take a quick look at the job description. Don't think anything needs to be changed there, really. But our plan is to get that position posted right away.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Topics for future discussion.
So, Mike,
Yep.
We've talked about different pending lawsuits and questions we have. And when about a year ago, no, probably it was in the spring, Dan Hort mentioned that the bill for KP Law was really high last year. And he did not enumerate what it was, but I think when and if we do want to discuss something or run something by town council, we do have to go through Maria anyhow, but Maria should know this too, that we just have to be careful with how much money we spend. And that being said, I know we want to talk about the different litigation going on, but I don't think there's any new information. So I'm wondering if we need town council, or if we just want to talk about it in executive session with ourselves.
So the one thing I would say just about this quickly is that I thought about that, and I was thinking, because it's almost everything that we've got, going, that we're going to be talking about, it might make sense to have town council at this meeting, just in case there's questions, because a lot of it, even though there's the update in there, I think it might be appropriate to have them at this meeting. I don't know that it's necessary, but
okay.
But because we're covering so many topics, it might make sense to just have Carolyn there to answer, or whoever's dealing with litigation. Go ahead, Ellen.
So I agree with Janet. I think we should get the material that exists on all these cases, which exists, and it should be somewhat available through Courtney or Maria.
Yeah, we actually
hold on. Take a look at it, figure out questions, and then revisit the idea of having an appointment with KP Law about it. I completely agree with Janet, which is why, for example, when this rather crucial determination about what our new status is in relation to the subdivision ways in Indian Neck Heights, for a variety of reasons that we're all pretty aware of, I did every single thing I could before distilling the 3 questions that I really couldn't research and answer or get from anybody else who might know enough about it. I really did the work. And those 3 questions are pretty basic in general and will give us clarity about something that we really do need to know about, because our status in that subdivision and our relation to the subdivision control law is very important for us. And it's either, I think that it has been changed and it's to the town's advantage, but we need confirmation from KP Law, not because everything that was done wasn't done before asking those questions, but because a lot of the answers rely on knowledge of court law, which if they can't give it to us, we should get a new attorney, but I think they'd be able to. So I agree with Janet, though. I've been telling people for years, my God, why don't you just read every piece of law on this that you can access by Googling it, and then figure out what your questions are before you just throw it at KP Law? Somebody on the access committee. We'll just ask a lawyer. I said, why not you find out?
Okay, good.
Your discussion.
Helen, you're mute.
I'm not muted.
You're breaking up.
I am. Well, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So can I do future topics? Janet, are you done?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that actually, I think you convinced me, Helen, on that. We should probably just meet with the select board, and then if questions arise, we can direct those questions that need to be answered through the town administrator to town council. It's probably the appropriate thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do the homework first.
And we can bring Ryan up to speed if he has questions that we already know the answer to. You're right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
can I, future topics, please?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Couple things. Courtney, through you, Mike, to Courtney. Have you gotten any responses from the state agencies and the park and the Bike and Walkways Committee and anybody else about this meeting that we're going to have, the group meeting that we voted to have? Has that invitation been sent out to all those groups and people? And have you gotten back from anybody? Because we haven't gotten any dates proposed coming
No,
from
it hasn't been sent out yet. I will send them all. I guess I was confused on what you were looking for because we had the meeting with Brian. So if I'll send that invitation out this week and see what they say.
I have identified the people to meet with.
That's what I thought was the plan.
Yeah, I have identified those people and reached out to them. I was trying to arrange to have a short conversation with them so that our meeting altogether could be more productive. But, we're ready to set up the meeting. I've got, project manager contacts for both Department of Natural Resources or Department of Conservation and Recreation, whatever it is, and also the Department of Transportation.
and the park and the Bike and Walkways Committee. And also because they were present at a number of the meetings about this issue, both Senator Sears' office and Sarah Peak's office. They sent people to a number of the meetings on this, including 2 of the hearings. And 2 of them were at one of those abutters meetings that the board didn't know about, and I got to go to just because I heard about it at the last minute by mistake, almost. So anyway, those were all enumerated in, I think, our motion, and Courtney got it. So that was my first question about figuring out a date for that sooner rather than later. And also, I think we need in our next agenda to at least discuss the FinCom's recommendation for the capital improvement plan, which we have gotten, and to get back to them. We got, an email about this and saying, from Rebecca Eldridge, their secretary, from them, in other words. And, can we at least look at it together, give it a once over, read it, and have it as an agenda item? And then the status of, oh man, I can't remember. There was
okay. Maybe I'll think of it. I'll come back to you, Helen. Ryan.
Yeah, just really quick. So Courtney's our secretary. Do we have to have a vote on who might be the interim secretary, or
no?
No. Okay.
That would be the town administrator.
I'm all set.
Good job.
Helen, do you have anything still? No? Okay.
Can't remember.
I have a couple things that I've been working on, but I'm just not ready to bring them up yet. But one of them is regulating maintenance of abandoned and foreclosing and foreclosed residential commercial properties. So I've basically just doing some research on other places that do that. So at some point, I'd like to get that up on the agenda.
I can help you with some information on that too, okay. Having been responsible for that for about 10 years.
Yeah. Okay. We don't have anything on our books about it that I know of.
On buildings.
We do. I've gone through this process, both sitting at this table in the past, and also I've had to find out about it because of a property that's next door to me, and have in fact talked to the Ethics Commission about that. But never mind, Mike, it's a good idea. And how many of them are there pending?
Yeah,
well, I would love that in the agenda.
Yeah, one thing's derelict, but there's also just abandoned and foreclosed buildings, and we don't regulate the maintenance of them. We just say whether they're condemned or not. That's different.
Yeah.
Well, it's also having people paying their taxes.
Yeah, that's fine. We're not going to get to it tonight, so we probably shouldn't talk about it because it's not on the agenda, but that's a topic that I'd like to get into.
Mr. Chairman, if you and I can talk offline about what you're considering, I can
Sure.
talk to you about what the different facets of that could entail,
Yeah.
so we can
Yeah, that'd be good.
work together, Paul Fowler and I.
Yeah, that'd be good. Sure. Yeah, I've got a few things, so. Okay, I guess, we just have to approve the minutes, but we have correspondence. Do we have any correspondence to talk about?
No.
Vacancy reports?
Nope.
Okay, approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of November 9th, 2020, as printed in draft.
Second.
Hold on, Ryan?
I would like to make an amendment.
Okay.
Sure.
Second page, first paragraph. Second sentence, Curly said he wanted, this is what it reads right now. Curly said he wanted the bike trail to stop at the campground, but rather Old County Road. I rewatched the video just to make sure. So Curly said he did not want the bike trail to stop at the campground, but at least get to Old County Road. Yeah. And where it says, nor did he want it to connect to Route 6. It wasn't Route 6. It was Route 6 at the DRC's proposed location.
Ryan, can you just send me that in writing? Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I wrote this down on my copy. DRC's what location?
DR.
The DRC's
DCR.
proposed location.
DCR's proposed location. Thank you.
Roll call vote?
Janet, aye.
Helen
It's the second,
abstained.
right?
Well, it
Yep.
doesn't have to be as amended.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
So I moved to approve the minutes of November 9th, 2020 as amended.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Janet, aye.
Justina, aye.
Helen abstained.
Ryan, I.
Michael, aye. Motion carries 4-0, one abstention. I move to approve the minutes of November 10th, 2020. Does anybody have any amendments to it? No,
Second.
as printed in the draft.
Justina seconded it.
Okay. Roll call vote?
Janet, aye.
Helen abstained.
Justina, aye.
Ryan, I.
Michael, aye. Motion carries 4-0, one abstention. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I so moved.
And seconded.
Roll call vote?
Helen, aye.
Janet, aye.
Justina, aye.
Ryan, I.
Michael, aye. Motion carries 5-0. Goodbye, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You all, I love you all. Be safe.
You too.